What is up, everybody? Welcome to ToothandTailtv on this beautiful Halloween 2017 evening. I am your host, Delthius, and not joining me tonight will be Icebox. If you guys haven't heard the great news, Icebox recently just had his first baby. A little ice tray. Chip off the old ice block, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so that's why we didn't have a show last week. Icebox kind of talked to me when we started this and let me know, his baby was due in mid-October. So he's probably going to be taking a couple weeks off. And in the meantime, I will be your solo caster here. Maybe I'll get somebody else from the community to hop in here with me. So I've got 13 games lined up for tonight. Thanks for joining us on Halloween, guys. We've still got some awesome Halloween skins. Logian is working on this awesome chameleon right now, which unfortunately isn't done for this show, but that's okay. We'll get it in here when it is done. So yeah, the tournament over the weekend was great. Good job to the Clash of Comrades guys for hosting that, and good job to Chip for beating Mishi in a very close grand final match. It was really exciting to watch. I've been so busy lately, man. I went to TwitchCon a couple weeks ago and had a phenomenal time. I got to meet the Pocketwatch Games guys. I hung out at the booth with them a lot. Best Tea Maker was there, Glide, Dexter, and Andy Shots, and all those guys were great, man. They're really cool. I got to hang out a lot and talk with Andy, and we went to dinner and had a couple drinks, so that was a lot of fun. And thank you for whatever that was. Sorry, I'm kind of soloing it here, so I'm not 100% on what my alerts are doing at this point, but I appreciate it. If you're just joining us for this first time, this is a weekly Tuesday and Thursday night casting show where you submit replays and Icebox and I cast them. But Icebox will be out for the next couple weeks due to his baby being born. So for now, you guys are just stuck with me. So I haven't tried solo casting yet, but we'll give it a shot, and maybe I'll get one of you beautiful nerds from the community in here to give me a hand at one point or another. But oh, Mishi, thanks for the host, dude. I appreciate it. Okay, cool. So we're gonna get started here with PWC Big D versus Ivana Cookie. Let's do it. All right. So we're not saying 3, 2, 1, go anymore to sync replays, but in the bottom right we've got PWC, and in the top left we have Ivana Cookie. So if you guys weren't aware, I am trying to prioritize the most recent patch worth of replays. So if you've submitted in the past and I didn't get to it, I apologize. Send me a message. I'm really easy to get a hold of on Discord, Twitch chat, or to my Gmail, and just let me know we missed a replay from you, and I'll be sure to get it in. But so far everything looks pretty normal here. I really like Ivana Cookie's build with the owl. I think the owl is in a really, really good spot lately, and I haven't had a ton of time to play. I got to play some games last night, and all the doodads and stuff that are on the maps now really adds a lot of choke points and things of that nature. And it's really cool seeing this new meta kind of arrive with buildings getting seeing a big resurgence, in my opinion, especially like balloons. I really like that play where people go for like barbed wire and balloons and try to kind of turtle up into some owls. But so far, this seems pretty standard. I'm not too sure what to make of the new meta. Like a 6-farm Warren seems pretty standard. I really like this play out of Ivana Cookie coming in here and really punishing this very, very fast campfire coming out of PWC here and gets it, completely for free. So really good pick off for Ivana Cookie there, but I'm kind of worried about his money, and that's where Tooth and Tail can get a little intricate, guys, is when you're out doing these kind of harassment plays, you can't be building at the same time. So let's just see what he decides to go back and do. Yeah, just goes ahead, queues up some of his farms, and rushes straight to a tier 2. And if you guys haven't seen Logian's little teaser, man, he's got a executioner chameleon in the works right now. I'm really, really excited to see that. So far, nothing too crazy coming out of both these players. PWC is going up for that, pretty standard couple tier 1 Warrens out in the early game, getting a defensive structure, and he's got pretty defendable base here. He's kind of got what I call a pocket expansion right here to the right. Just really easy to defend and pretty close to his main base, so that should play out pretty well from him. And I see this is a new meta, and I gotta talk to some of the guys like Mishi and Chip a little more, but it seems like chameleons are starting to get more and more play, and it makes a lot of sense because they're so tanky. and this kind of squirrel meta that we've been seeing lately. And it is interesting to note, as I say squirrel meta, both these players are running lizards, so we'll have to see what they make of that. But overall, I would say the Big D's got a better map position here than Ivana Cookie does, right? I mean, Ivana Cookie kind of has this natural base a little bit outside of his main. He's got this, 9 o'clock position over here he could possibly take relatively easily, but I really feel like it's kind of on Ivana Cookie here to get something done in this early game, because PwC's just got this great, what I kind of call like this castle setup going on here, right? With these two really easy pocket/natural bases to grab, and that campfire right there, and a nice defendable choke right here to stop any type of aggression. And keep in mind there is a back entrance to his base, and Ivana Cookie's kind of really aware of that. You notice he's kind of got his lizard's position over here for any kind of flank or counterattack if PwC decides to move out. So yeah, both these players actually rushing straight up to a handful of lizards and some chameleons, so it's going to be really cool. And that balloon gets out, which I think the balloon is actually a really strong pick in the meta right now because it does so much damage at tier 2. And oh man, here's the woof. Alright, so I was... he faked me out. Okay, he's going for an expansion anyways there, but Ivana Cookie coming in for the attack and manages to sneak all the way around, get right on top of these pigs, but he's going to have to get a lot of damage here because I'm pretty sure BWC is going to wipe this army pretty effectively. But at the same time, I mean, he got 2 pigs. Getting that third one really would have helped, but yeah, overall, I would say PwC probably came out on top there. I mean, he took a little bit of economic damage, but the farms are going to start mining out here shortly anyways, so it doesn't feel too strong. But I saw some games in the tournament where Mishi, I can't remember who Mishi was playing, I think it was near the end, but went for this like fast wolf build, and I was like, this is never going to work. And my god, man, those wolves really, really buff the hell out of your units, so I was kind of getting hyped to see PwC go for that early wolf. I think it's probably a fairly viable strategy, but decides not to for now, and gets up a little bit extra balloon defenses, gets his second base out, but it's still a little early. Yeah, no, actually now's about the time. It makes sense, because if you're new to this game, guys, at 5 minutes, 4 of your farms are going to mine out, so you want to make sure you've got an expansion underway around that same time, or you've got a plan to get in there and attack your enemy. So we're gearing up towards a fairly interesting mid-game here, because PwC is going to have the economic edge, especially if he applies pressure to this expansion, but Ivana Cookie's already got the owl, and once that owl builds up a couple mice to get in there and get some damage done, I'm not sure if PwC is going to be able to deal with the amount of value that Ivana Cookie can get out of that. So we'll have to see how that pans out. And Ivana Cookie is actually taking this extra gristmill for territorial purposes. I'd imagine he probably wants to build some turrets, maybe where the front line, or at least where this front line that they're kind of making over here is going to be. If you notice, when that gristmill got taken, Ivana Cookie's territory expanded and PwC's retracted a little bit. So if Ivana Cookie wants, he can go over to that little area near the water and throw down a couple turrets, which will give him a really nice spot to kind of safely retreat to. And we'll have to see what they decide to do from here. And I love the play. This is where I always mess up. Like, I tried doing this defensive structure owl build against Bright Yellow on the ladder the other day, and we're going pretty even, but I noticed, like, I built so many defensive structures, like so many balloons, so many barbed wires, and he didn't really build any at all, and that gave him an advantage later on. So it really feels rough when you invest, a lot of food into defensive structures, and your enemy either plays around them or just smartly kind of waits to engage, because no matter what happens, PwC's got 240 plus 60, 300 food, sitting there in defense, which is good, but if Ivana Cookie invests that same money into his army or into his economy, he could effectively get ahead. So we'll have to see where it pans out from here. Looks like Ivana Cookie is just kind of taking it slow, wanting to macro up a little bit. He gets his second base taken completely. Now PwC tries to get in here with some chameleons, and he needs to be careful. Those mice are going to give Ivana Cookie a lot of free value here, and takes out those chameleons. Yeah, he definitely had to have lost a chameleon or two there for sure, but a couple of them stealth just in time. I think if I hit toggle visibility on him, I can see, yeah, there's his chameleons. Cool. So interestingly, PwC decided not to run pigeons in his build, which I've been seeing more lately. I think it's pretty cool with the pigeon changes. It doesn't feel like it's like this auto include as it used to be, but if you're a player who likes pigeons, it's still pretty viable. So it's good to go. What's up, everybody in the chat? How's it going, man? I appreciate everybody showing up on this Halloween night. I think a lot of people got their partying done over the weekend, or some older people like me are like, it's a Tuesday, I gotta wake up and go to work early tomorrow, but I got some candy, I got a beer, so I'm having a good time hanging out with you nerds. And we'll have to see from here. I mean, Ivana Cookie's expansion and his economy is getting out of control, but so is PwC's, and he's finally getting this wolf out. And I really like the Winged Demon, Falcon play here coming out of PwC, and as the meta expands more and more towards this like owl type of stuff, I mean, look at Ivana Cookie's deck. I mean, yeah, he's got the snakes, but the snakes are kind of like a tech choice. I don't think he really wants to make them unless he absolutely has to. But chameleons, owls, obviously pigeons. I mean, even lizards with their reduced range. These are not good units against the Winged Demon. So if you're against that kind of meta where you see guys kind of macroing up like this and getting a lot of owls out, Falcons might be the answer to that, because they can get in there and snipe those owls down and not have to worry about the mice. And we'll have to see. And again, like, I love this really defensive play out of PwC, but I think this game is really starting to illustrate the difference that happens when one player builds all these defensive structures and the other does not. And here we go. Ivana Cookie decided, I've got enough mice now. I'm going to come in here and hopefully get a gristmill down. And this is another really good thing I like about turrets in this owl meta, is turrets seem to be a really good response to a whole bunch of mice. Not in low numbers, but if it's getting to that super, super late game and your opponent's got a bunch of owls, if you could throw like 10 turrets down on a front line, I mean, you really do a lot of work to those mice. And here come the Winged Demons, and I'd really like to see PwC here build more and more of those Winged Demons, because I think that's really the answer to the composition we see here out of Ivana Cookie. And both players starting to float a little bit of money, but that's okay. These guys are having fun and, playing to what they can. And it gets rough when you get to this phase of the game, man, because you gotta remember, when you're macroing and throwing down more warrens and stuff like that, you can't be microing at the same time. So these guys really gotta be careful on how many warrens they throw down and when they throw them down. And also, economies at this phase in the game can get really sporadic too. Like, you might feel like you can throw down a whole bunch of warrens, and all of a sudden a bunch of your farms just start mining out of nowhere, and you're left with all these warrens that can't produce. And so I think they're trying to balance that a little bit. And with Ivana Cookie's position here, man, really what he should do is just throw down like 3 more owl warrens, and, with 16 farms behind you. And let's see, I mean, PwC's finally getting the memo and building some falcons, but Ivana Cookie's coming in here and getting some work done. And I mean, it does suck that he lost that expansion there, but that expansion was kind of on its way out anyways, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. But let's take a look at this map here. So PwC's got 2 more gristmills and a campfire to Ivana Cookie's 1 more gristmill and a campfire. I mean, yeah, he's got that gristmill at the 9 o'clock, but that's been mining about as long as that middle gristmill that just got taken out's been mining. So really, if PwC can just kind of hang on, he should win this war of attrition here. It's going to be very difficult with Ivana having the owls, and I wonder why Ivana's floating so much money here. I mean, maybe it's just, any RTS is a rough game, or maybe he's just trying to figure out where he wants to place something down, but he's got to start spending his money soon. And maybe another idea here is to save it for the reinforcement. Maybe he feels like, my army is big enough, so I'm not going to invest in a whole bunch more warrens. Instead, I'll just be able to quickly reinforce my army. We can see, as these lizards start dying, more and more lizards are just automatically being produced. So not a bad strategy out of Ivana Cookie here. And if he gets this gristmill, that's a really big deal. I mean, this is one of PwC's main income sources right now. But in the meantime, PwC smartly coming in here and deciding maybe the base race is the way to go. And oh no, did he miss that campfire? No, he knows about the campfire, but I believe he's got to get that campfire to force Ivana to be starving. Maybe one of you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have a campfire going, you should still be mining. And yeah, that sucks for PwC, man, because I think his attack to kind of wrap around here and do the base raid could have worked in his favor if he managed to get that other campfire down there in the, 7 o'clock position. So really, let's see. Yeah, Ivana Cookie's just got to finish off this last gristmill here and force PwC out of the game. But PwC finally comes back to this campfire. Is he going to get it in time? Yeah, he forces Ivana into starving before he's gonna get forced into starving, so in theory, shouldn't be. Nope, that's it. Great game coming out of both those guys. Really cool to see the mid game evolve like that, and kind of the owl meta versus the wolf meta. I would have liked to see the wolf a little more. Kind of felt like the wolf got out and then just kind of hammered on, but great submission, man. I really appreciate it. All right, let's see who is next. Uh-oh, Sky Raider versus Chip, huh? It's gonna be a good one. All right, let's see. What's up, everybody? If you're joining for the first time, this is Toothandtailtv. We do replay casting show every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. EST. I'm normally joined by my good buddy Icebox, but he just had a baby, so he is taking a couple weeks off of doing nerdery and focusing on his family. So appreciate you guys tuning in on the Halloween evening, and got a lot of different games lined up. And please submit me your replays at toothandtailtv@gmail.com. I get replay submissions very often. I appreciate it from everybody, but unfortunately, and fortunately at the same time, I guess, this game gets patched really often. So we thought about it and we decided, well, I think the best thing to do is just keep the replay show on the most recent patch. So unfortunately, we have to throw a lot of the replays we get kind of in the trash. And, you know, if you have submitted to me in the past and you haven't been on the show, just let me know and we'll get you in here probably on the show on Thursday night. So without any further ado, let's hop into Sky Raider versus Chip. All right. In the red, in the 9 o'clock position on this beautiful snowy map is Sky Raider. And in the right, top right-ish, everybody knows him, everybody loves him, Chip from One Base. Oh yeah. Okay, so Chip is not running the pigeons, which I think I've seen a lot on his map, on his build order recently, which makes sense. I mean, I feel like pigeons are still pretty good, but they don't feel like this auto-includes type of unit anymore, which is really healthy for the meta, because when units kind of become that like auto-include, it really, you know, messes up the rest of the choices you can make, and possibly, you know, the deck variety that we see coming out of here. But both these guys opted to go for the wolf, which seems really strong. I mean, I wasn't a big believer in the wolf, but man, I saw some great games this weekend using the wolf, and you know, the boost that it gives your units, especially in the early game, is really significant, guys. I mean, you get a quick wolf out, you'd be very surprised with what that can accomplish. And Chip, noting that he's got this nice free campfire in his little pocket area, and Sky Raider just continuing to scout the map, see what's going on. As far as expansions are concerned, it's definitely in Chip's favor here, but you know, these guys are both really high-level players, and typically high-level games don't go much farther than like 2, maybe 3 bases for the most part. You know, Chip just coming in here, he doesn't care if his commander dies, no big deal, just sees the Sky Raider win for this very standard, you know, get up your 8 farms, get out 2 tier 1 Warrens, and Chip decides, I'll be safe, I'll go ahead and match that. And, you know, really what I'd expect to see from either of these players is a pretty fast tier 2. And we'll have to see what that decision is, because they both have quite a few options available to them. But interesting to see Sky Raider using the Fox, and look at this. Oh, thinks about it, okay. Changes of placement, good mind game tactics out of Sky Raider there. You know, going for the 2 tier 1 Warren opening, so when Chip scouted, he saw everything is A-okay, and right now Chip is in the dark on the tier 3 unit that's about to be coming his way. He'll know here very soon. You know, if you're a new player, guys, it's really important to scout your opponent constantly, because you just get a lot of valuable information. And over on the Chip side, he took that quick campfire, which is going to give him basically an extra farm. He decides, okay, my opponent went up for quick tier 3, so I'm not under any super early aggression. My response is going to be get out a double snake and go ahead and take an expansion, which seems like a really good play if you don't want to opt to get your own tier 3 Warren out. And Sky Raider very smartly saved up enough money to where when his Wolf Warren finished, he could go ahead and throw it down. And oh wow, interesting, Wolf and Fox together. Now see, that kind of makes sense to me, because the big nerf with the Fox had to do with its attack speed, right? So maybe if the attack speed is increased by the Wolf, the nerf to the Fox is slightly mitigated. So we'll have to see how that plays out here. But Chip's not really the kind of guy who's going to sit around and just let you get up a free Wolf and a free Fox, you know, this early in the game. So I'd imagine Chip is probably waiting for his snakes to finish, and he's probably going to put on some aggression, and we'll have to see. I mean, he did just resell his Squirrel Warrens, maybe a little bit of indecision, and decides, okay, I'll go up to a bunch of tier 1 here, get the snakes out. And this is a really good answer to a quick tier 3, guys, because the snakes, I mean, they did get nerfed, which I agree with the nerf to where they don't poison buildings anymore. I feel like that makes ferrets, you know, kind of fit the niche that they're supposed to a little more appropriately. But snakes are a fantastic counter to tier 3 units because that's kind of what they're designed to do, right? They're designed to get in there, get those poison stacks on those units with a whole bunch of HP, and knock them down over time. And that hurts so bad, man, when you're on the receiving end of that and you're trying to micro your tier 3 units out and it just barely dies to that last tick of poison. It's always the worst feeling in the world. So, you know, Chip, interestingly, takes another gristmill here. I'm going to see if he's actually going to let that finish, or perhaps he was kind of thinking about making it a gristmill tank, but no, he's just going to let his economy grow. And is he aware? Okay, so he's not aware of Sky Raider's second base yet, but Chip should get in there and scout that here shortly. And you know, Sky Raider is not opting to boost his farm production with his wolves, because if you weren't aware, wolves will actually boost. Oh, interesting. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that should be increasing the. No, I guess not. I was gonna say it might be increasing the production rate of those farms, but you can tell what it's buffing by the little red lightning bolts over the heads. So right now he's buffing a couple of his workers, and oh my god, that fox is so fast! That's insane. All right, let's see. I'm interested, man. I don't think I've seen the build coming out of Sky Raider before, but meanwhile at Chip's base, he's getting just a ton of squirrels and a couple of wolves that back him up, which is going to be a very, very powerful combination here. All right, look how fast that fox is. Are you insane? That's crazy. Oh my god. I really want to see that. That's so funny, man. I want to see this fox in action. Let's see. Chip floating a lot of money. I wonder if he's deciding, yeah, goes for a couple of Winged Demon Warrens. Oh, yeah, and he was also floating. Okay, so he's floating the money just so his wolves will be able to start building in time after he finished. And, yeah, actually, that's a really good campfire position there. No, he doesn't have any defense. I was going to say you could set up some defense, but gives you a nice little retreat path to go back to because that campfire will soak up some damage from Chip's troops, right? So gives him a little more tanking with his army, and man, I don't know who's going to win this engagement, to be honest. I mean, if Sky Raider senses the fact this is a timing attack, moves in right now, he could get a lot of work done, and man, look at that fox go, being buffed by the wolf. That is crazy. That is absolutely insane. I want to steal this build. Alright, let's see. The snakes are coming in to engage, but the snakes got buffered away by the squirrels and couldn't find their high damage target, and finally, these wolves out for Chip, but it might be too late because Sky Raider kind of pushed the advantage before the wolves were out for Chip, and it's a really good timing attack out of Sky Raider. I'm not positive if he was aware that Chip had a couple tier 3s building, or if he kind of got lucky and attacked right at the right moment, but either way, it works out great for Sky Raider here, and I think it's going to be hard for Chip to recover. I mean, you know, with the economy on the back end of Sky Raider, you know, he's just pumping out more and more squirrels, and you know, the attack, well, the squirrels are kind of smartly following the bridges there in the water, so that's helping the reinforcement. And yeah, at this point, I think the damage is done. And you know, really interesting strategy coming out of both these guys here. You know, Chip going for that double Warren high tier 1 with a couple snakes to try to counter the enemy's high tier stuff, and then Sky Raider was like, you know what, I'm gonna go for a fox buff up by a wolf and run around like it's hyped up on crack or something over here. Crack Fox, right? Like Crackling from Brood War, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, Crack Fox going on. But I think what it came down to was Sky Raider pushed before Chip's wolves were ready, and then also when Chip went in, the snakes weren't able to get a good angle on Sky Raider's tier 3. But man, great game, great submission. Oh, whoops! It was a good game, but not good enough to watch again. All right, guys, bear with me. Okay. So, I prioritize these in the order that'll get us to as many unique submitters as possible tonight. We can normally make it through, I don't know, somewhere around 10 to 12 replays per night, depending on how long they are. What's up, everybody? Happy Halloween. How's it going, guys? Welcome to the show. All right. Without any further ado, I hope I don't butcher this name, but we got CJ Man Jansen versus Obscuchin? Obscuchin sounds right. I'm gonna go with Obscuchin. Alright, let's do this. Alright, spawning in the 9 o'clock position as our blue Bellified here, we've got CJ Manjansen. And in the 4 o'clock, as the best rat in the world, Hopper, Obscuchin. So let's take a look at these builds. Oh man, for one, I gotta say, I just love the new maps. I mean, just the snow overlay looks so good, and surprisingly, this map is not got any of the doodads at all. And one of the things that I think changed the game more than anything with the new map changes was the introduction of all these doodads on the map now. And doodads are kind of like little objects you can't interact with that are just for flavor, like little sheds and stuff like that. And what those typically do is make for some really interesting chokes and even kind of create some mazy-like maps. But I love this play out of Manjansen. It's so tempting for me to resist doing stuff like this. And so he's looking for a proxy base to be able to build up some turrets, but Obscuchin does scout it out, so CJ Manjansen's plans might be foiled. But then again, Obscuchin has not started just now started a Warren, so these turrets are definitely going to get up here. And I'm not sure what the math is, but to take out 2 turrets, it's going to be rough on the amount of squirrels you're going to need to do that, right? I mean, he's got to go in. He would need all 6 squirrels, I feel like, to even have a chance here. And if CJ kind of commits more and more to this frontal, contain that he's got going on here, this is going to get really painful for Obscuchin really fast. And let's see what his response is. And Chameleon is a good answer. What feels really painful for Obscuchin here is I think those 2 farms are in range of those turrets, right? That's why he's not planning them down, and that's gotta hurt. And man, this is like, I love this strategy because when I do it, I feel like I'm the most clever nerd that's ever lived, right? I'm a freaking genius, yeah. But then when somebody does it to me, it just feels so cheap and so mean. It's definitely cheesy, but it's really cool, and it kind of is one of the reasons why you can't be too greedy, right? I feel like the meta lately has gone away from safer openings and more towards really, really economic openings. So if both players kind of start off with this gentleman's agreement of, hey, let's both kind of rush up to 8 farms, then doing something like this can really catch your opponent off guard, because I feel like making that first Warren around the 5th or 6th farm has gone a little out of style. Just because the nerf to the lizards and the nerf to the moles kind of makes the early game aggression. It's still there, but it's not as dire as it once was, I feel like. And ooh, he loses a Chameleon there, but it looks like he might be able to break out of this contain. Chameleon number 2 goes down, and if Obscuchin, you gotta remember, I mean, as much of a dick move as this was out of CJ Manjansen, I mean, it's very all-in-ish, right? He was able to sell those Warrens to get that back, but he's going to lose this gristmill, he's going to lose these farms, and that's a really big economic advantage, and investment, rather. And Obscuchin right now has a lot of tempo. If he takes this gristmill and just rushes all the way over to CJ Manjansen's base, Manjansen's going to be in a lot of trouble, because he did sell those Warrens, but he's got to rebuild them, so right now he's got no army. And he's perfectly aware of this, so he decides to go ahead and throw up a couple turrets to be defensive. And I don't know. Turrets got nerfed a little bit. They're not, super, super tanky anymore, so I'm not sure exactly how the math works out, but 12 squirrels probably fare pretty well. And this is a really good angle that Obscuchin's getting up here, hoping to maybe, fight a turret with not all 3 of them shooting at him at once. And is it going to work out for him? It's a pretty close fight. He's got to be careful whether or not he wants to commit here. He doesn't have any kind of pigeons or anything like that to heal, and he decides to go ahead and run back. And the campfire is going to be really good for Obscuchin here, because it's going to give him some forward momentum. Now he's got an area where his units can heal up and take a little break. And if you are new to the game, units do heal in your territory. There's also a unit called a pigeon, which Manjansen is running in his deck, but he has not built any yet. That will heal your units over time, just like a medic kind of deal, standard healer class. And I kind of like where the meta is evolved to, because the pigeon at one point just a couple weeks ago, was very a required pick. You kind of had to have the pigeons because they could stack heal. And now, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, guys, but I believe pigeons can only stack 3 times, so they're not this crazy, I'm gonna build a badger and make 1 million pigeons and there's not a whole lot you can do about it anymore. It's I think it's a really tactical decision whether or not you want to take them, and it's always better when units are in that kind of place. So I really agree with the balance change there. And so right now in this game, CJ Man Jansen's in a tight spot. I mean, the tables kind of got turned on him a little bit. It was a really cool expansion rush he did, but Obscuchin was able to break out of it. And now he's putting on the pressure, but Obscuchin needs to be really careful to not overextend. Like, I would almost like to see Obscuchin kind of take it back a little bit, maybe get a gristmill up and just kind of, when you're ahead, get more ahead. I mean, the 5-minute mark, I did cover up the timer so you guys don't get spoiled on, how much time is left in the game, but we are at about 5 minutes 40 seconds right now, and those, your economy takes a really big hit after the first 5 minutes of the game. So both these players kind of working with scraps now, and it's going to be really difficult for Obscuchin to reinforce his army with the amount of warrens he has, and I don't know, it's getting pretty close, to be honest. I mean, Man Jansen's holding on by the skin of his teeth here, and if he micros these chameleons really well, I mean, chameleons are an interesting unit because they do phenomenally in these like small skirmishes like this, right? Because they're pretty tanky units and they've got good damage output, but I feel like in like bigger later game engagements, if there's like this certain critical mass of squirrels or of DPS from the opponent, then the chameleons can kind of get outshined. If people are able to DPS them down before anything happens. But yeah, this game's getting totally scrappy, and good call out of Obscuchin to go ahead and sell off a couple of those extra warrens. He realizes it's going to be very difficult at this point to be able to afford that big army like he was previously. And both guys going down to just 2 farms, and CJ Man Jansen is a chameleon ahead, but not for very long. This is going to become a very even fight here, and I think chameleons are actually another cool addition to the recent meta as well, because I feel like barbed wire is getting more popular, and chameleons are a good answer for that, but this engagement looks like it's going to go Man Jansen's favor. Ooh, and he gets the chameleon, and yeah, this is huge for Man Jansen now. I'd like to see him maybe sell that chameleon war, and there you go, perfect. Get up those nine squirrels again, and yeah, okay, sure, take the expansion, but move out, man. I mean, Obscuchin's got not a lot left here, and Obscuchin realizing the same thing, and sells his chameleons, realizing I'm not going to be able to afford him again, and takes a base. So we're going to have to see if this game stabilizes again, and we get to some weird mid-game, but essentially we're totally reset here, and going back to the beginning. And this is going to be tough, too, because it feels like, at this point, the obvious thing is to queue up a bunch of farms, but it would have been really cool to see some mind games of maybe Obscuchin like selling that gristmill after CJ Man Jansen scouted it, and then investing in just like a couple more squirrel warrens and just being like, come on, man, let's end it. But it's a much safer move. What Obscuchin did, definitely the better play here, and we'll have to see who ends up getting this economic advantage. I mean, both players are pretty tied up. I guess CJ might be slightly ahead since his new farm is finished, but these farms at their main base should be mining out any second now, and it's gonna get very, let's see, I mean, it's been scrappy for a while, but maybe both players are kind of gentlemen's agreementing a bit and saying, all right, let's get up another 8 farm economy. And 8 farms is pretty standard if you're new to the game and you've been trying to figure out like, okay, how much do I expand, how much do I make sure my economy is running. I mean, obviously, the more farms, the better, but a good rule of thumb is always make sure you've got 8 farms going. So when that first 5 minutes hits and 4 of your farms drop off, you should have your expansion up, and you should have 4 more farms, on the way or ideally already done at that point. And that's not to say you always do have to expand. I mean, there's kind of 2 ways you can approach the game. You can kind of like one base all in, which is really, really powerful because, at the 5-minute mark, your opponent's most likely going to do what I just explained, right? Where you're going to, build an expansion, start getting your economy back. But if you decide, you know what, I'm going to invest all that money my opponent invested into continuing an economy, if I invest that right now into more army, you can go over there and just roll over to your opponent. So it's not really as cut and dry as it seems sometimes. Like, even when you get a second base out, you got to really be vigilant with your scouting and identify how much your opponent is committing to his second base, right? Because, I mean, you could easily get faked out. They could build the gristmill, like I was saying earlier, and then after you scout it, maybe sell it, build like 3 or 4 more tier 1 warrens, and come in there and run over you while you're trying to build an expansion base. So, you got to be careful for stuff like that. And Obscuchin getting this minefield out, and I'm not sure how much of that Man Jansen saw. Now, after the mines finish building, they are stealthed permanently, but if you're aware of mines, you can counterplay them. Chameleons, like we kind of talked about earlier, are really tanky units, right? So if I was in Man Jansen's position and I kind of caught Obscuchin laying down some of those mines, I would just bring up my Chameleons, let him tank some of those hits from the mines, bring him back, let him heal up. But if Man Jansen was not aware of those mines going down, this could be huge for Obscuchin here, because he's just going to march his entire army over that minefield and get blown up upon. So we'll have to see how that pans out. Alright. Sorry guys, trying to keep an eye over on the chat. I think everybody, I guess the sound's okay, and no frame drops or anything like that. I'm sure people would have mentioned by now. I apologize. Normally it's Icebox's job to look at the chat. Like, I try to observe the games, but it is just me tonight, so bear with me, guys. And Man Jansen going for it here, getting up to that owl, which is going to be huge if he can get it out, especially because this game is still kind of scrappy. And as I say that, both players are kind of getting their economy going back in good shape. I mean, Obscuchin took a third base. Man Jansen took that campfire up in the north. And these last two, I mean, whoever gets these last two grist mills is really what's going to make or break the game. I mean, this one in the south position here, Man Jansen should be able to secure that, but it's really going to come down to this one right here in no man's land. And with the defenses Obscuchin setting up, if he can figure out a way to just snag that and kind of push his front line a little forward, he's going to be in great shape here. And we'll have to see. I mean, if I'm in Man Jansen's position, I'm probably going to wait for my owl to come out. I think it takes like a minute or two. I think like a minute for all the mice to build. An owl will produce mice every X amount of time. I apologize, I'm not sure what it is exactly. I think it's something like 8 to 10 seconds. And those are kind of like free units that the owl continues to produce over time. And meanwhile, Obscuchin getting a boar out, and man, I am having so much fun with the boar lately, you guys. Like, it's so strong on the ladder right now, I feel like. Just that explosion is so much fun to do. Even if it wasn't like really, really strong, I think I'd still play it because it's just a ton of fun, man, to get that boar in there, get down to roasting on some nerds and watching that big explosion go off on the end. But, oh, we got some bats here, Halloween bat skin. Thanks to Elogian. Elogian's work. Oh, okay, so Man Jansen should be aware of the minefield now, and actually running in a mouse or two every now and then is going to be a great way to clear out these mines. And Obscuchin kind of realized that the gig is up there, and it goes and sells off those mines for more barbed wire. And the mice will get through the barbed wire eventually, but the barbed wire is a really great buffer against the mice. You can see it kind of trades with them fairly well. I mean, yeah, barbed wires cost money and mice don't, but we'll see. Man Jansen's going for it. He thinks he's got enough to break Obscuchin here, and this is a really good timing for him because Obscuchin's tier 2 units aren't out. His boar is on the way, but it's not out. And this is just some really good game sense coming out of Man Jansen here, and attacking kind of right at the perfect window of opportunity to come in here and get a lot of damage done to his opponent. And that's another thing that's so rough about barbed wire is, if you remember I was talking about at the beginning of this replay, a lot of maps nowadays have like a ton of doodads and choke points and stuff. I mean, that just makes barbed wire so insane right now. And Obscuchin kind of didn't luck out so much on the map RNG. When you're running barbed wire, you're probably hoping you get some of those choke points right outside your base, so you don't have to invest a lot and still get good use out of the barbed wire there. But great game overall, man. I did not think it was going to go on for that long, dude. That game was a wild ride. I appreciate the submission there. Mice every 5 seconds. They expire over a minute. Okay, so yeah, you can get up to 12 mice at a time. Thanks for that, Chip. Alright, let's keep this going. How's everybody's Halloween doing? Anybody do anything fun over the weekend? Alright, I'm really excited for this replay for 2 reasons. For one, it's a unique submitter, and I absolutely love unique submissions, man. I really appreciate all the guys who are constantly submitting me replays. The show would not be possible without you. I mean, guys like Skyraider, Chip, Mishi, Nikki, Man Jansen submits a lot. Banner Bastion submits pretty often. There's more, but I mean, rock on, man. But I really get excited when I see these unique submissions, and I try to prioritize them. Like, if you're new to Tooth and Tail, or if it's your first time watching the game, man, send me a replay, dude. I will for sure cast it as long as it's on the current balance patch. I actually try to prioritize getting to people we haven't seen before over the regulars. So, and this guy's got like the best name I've ever seen on here, Hungry Shipwrecked Fire Ants. That's a pretty good one. So, Hungry Shipwrecked Fire Ants versus Kerpa. Here we go. You guys ready? Okay, spawning in the 3 o'clock position. We've got the Hungry Shipwrecked Fire Ants. I guess I'll just call them Fire Ants. Oh, look at this very Fire Antsy map too, isn't it? Like deserty. Anyways, Kerpa down here at the 8 o'clock position, and really cool. Like I said, I haven't seen either one of these players, so I'm not sure what to expect. I mean, both these builds look pretty cool, and they have a lot of contrast. And in fact, the only units they're both running are pigeons, which are really standard, especially if you're a new player, guys. If you're new to this game, man, I just recommend running pigeons. It'll make your life a lot easier, and you might see some of these higher level guys not running them, and that's because they really know what they're doing, and they know how much value to get and when to run away and disengage and stuff like that. But pigeons will really help you out if you're a new player. And both these guys going for the 5-farm Warren, which to me kind of feels like an aggressive build in the current meta. I feel like it was kind of a safe build beforehand when we had to worry about really early mole rushes and lizard rushes and stuff. But lately, I mean, maybe it's just the games I've played. I'm not super high. I'm like normally float around level 30 or something, but it seems like most games, both players are not too opposed to go ahead and going up to 8 farms. So seeing them come out a little earlier is pretty interesting. And you note okay, so lizards are coming out for the fire ants here, and he's gonna be in a really good spot to go ahead and put some harassment on his enemy. I'd like to see him maybe move out with like 4 to 5 lizards. Like if he moved out about right now, he might be able to get something done. But at the same time, I mean, defender's advantage is very, very big in this game, especially now that lizards have less range. Because the big difference with the lizard range decrease is now more pigs can fire at the lizards when they're attacking, so makes it a little harder to get in there up front. And if any high level players are watching and want to comment a little bit about toads, man, let me know. I'm not sure. I mean, I know the changes that happen to the toads, but I haven't seen them a lot lately. I'm not sure if it's a combination of toads maybe not being as good as they were, plus the lizards aren't super good in the meta right now. I don't want to say they're not good in the meta, because that's certainly not true. They're just not popular in the meta. And the meta is a really interesting thing, guys. Like, just because something's not popular in a meta does not mean it is bad. I think that's a mistake people make in a lot of competitive games. A lot of times a unit might not have found its niche yet, or maybe, like Falcons, for example. People are saying Falcons were weak for a long time, but imagine a meta starts forming around like owls and barbed wire and drumfire cannons and stuff, right? And ferrets. All of a sudden, Falcons become incredibly powerful. It just really kind of depends on the meta that they're in. But so far, things are looking pretty standard. I mean, I like Hungry Shipwrecked Fire Ants opening here. Going for the 9 squirrels or lizards plus 3 pigeons feels like a really good safe combination for me. Like what I've been doing on the ladder lately is I'll move out with like 9 squirrels and 3 pigeons, and at that point, if your opponent went for something really greedy like early economy or an early tier 3 or even an early tier 2, you can get in there and punish them pretty effectively. But instead, Hungry Shipwrecked Fire Ants is just saying, you know what, I'm going to start establishing a zone on the map. I'm going to get up some good turrets, a very good turret placement, to be honest, on this nice little high ground right here. He's just going to hang out. He's going to get his economy going, and certainly nothing wrong with that. And man, skunks are really powerful against pigeons, too. Or not pigeons, against squirrels, I feel like. And tangent, but here's another example of where falcons can be really strong, right? If the meta starts going towards a lot of skunks, like we did see for about a week there, obviously skunks cannot attack air, so that's where falcons yet again come in. But Kerpa is going hard on these falcons here, man. He is getting up a very quick 6 falcons. And to be honest, I feel like that's going to do fairly well against Fire Ant's composition. I mean, Fire Ants went for the skunks, which is absolutely going to devastate Kerpa's squirrels, but are not going to be able to hit those falcons at all. And the snakes, though, I'm not sure on the math. Maybe one of you guys can help me out, but is it 1 or 2 hits from the snakes to kill a falcon? Does anybody know? Oh, yeah, somebody in the chat pointed out no AoE hits air. I appreciate that. And yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the comments on the chat, but I mean, Falcons are pretty meta right now, but I think I'm just more kind of commenting on maybe a week or two ago, and it's insane that like I've been busy the last week, man. I'm not gonna lie. That's why we didn't do a show last week, because I went to TwitchCon, which was a ton of fun, and then I had to hop. Man, I didn't even go home, dude. I had an overnight flight, and I stayed at the airport and went to a business trip. So I was just in hotels for like a week and a half this past week. So haven't got a whole lot of time to play, but I do agree. I've seen a ton more Falcons lately, and maybe it is because of the reasons I've been talking about, right? Like, I don't think the Falcons got any change unless I'm wrong. Oh, so Mishi says the Boar Bomb does hit air, so that's good to note. But yeah, so it's really cool to see a unit kind of start coming out of the woodworks like the Falcon, right? We're not a lot of people were playing it just a couple weeks ago, and all of a sudden it's getting more and more standard. And I really think it's because of this like owl skunk type meta. You know, people are starting to use these units that the Falcon really does well against, and great forward positioning coming out of Fire Ants here. This is why it's so hard for me to not run turrets in my deck, man. Like, I know it's really viable not to do so, but I just have so much fun with the turrets, and you know, doing stuff like this, kind of coming in here and creeping up a turret line is really powerful. I mean, you can contain your enemy, you can give yourself a nice little retreat path to go back to, and Fire Ants has got to be careful with trying to go in on that gristmill. I mean, now that the snakes don't poison buildings anymore, you know, snakes or skunks don't really DPS that thing down very quickly, and I've lost so many games, man, like trying to go in there and snipe a quick gristmill, and 9 times out of 10, it is not going to work out for you very well. So you got to be careful about that. I mean, gristmills have a lot of HP, they're very good at tanking, and you know, I'm really starting to like Kerpa's position here. He's got a campfire up, he's got a second, he's working on a third right now, and Fire Ants is in about the same spot economically, but you know, Kerpa's got the owls, which at the end of the day, the longer this game goes, the more those are gonna, you know, impact the value. But great move out of Fire Ants here, coming here and catching Kerpa out of position and taking that gristmill out. Beautiful play. And at the same time, though, I mean, 10 snakes is a lot of snakes, dude. If he can maybe micro those snakes up to an owl, I mean, I'm not 100% positive on the math, but I gotta think 10 snakes. If they get a shot or two off on an owl, it's gonna die to those poison stacks for sure. So this might become a really interesting mid-game here with Kerpa needing to be very careful with his owls and not let them get in range of the snakes, and you know, Fire Ants trying to do the exact opposite, trying to get those snakes in the range of the owls without just completely getting wrecked by the mice. We'll have to see. I mean, maybe Fire Ants committed a little too much to the snakes. It's going to be hard for him to find the money for a woof here, for sure. Let's check up on his economy. Now, this map really doesn't have a whole lot of gristmills, man. I mean, the bases that they're mining on right now are pretty much going to be it. I think it's going to be hard for either player to resecure this kind of middle-bottom gristmill that got taken out by Fire Ants earlier, just because that's in such hot territory, you know. But really, whatever player does manage to get that, I think is going to be in a great position to win this game. And I really like where some of these like late game games are starting to go. I mean, I lost a game the other day against Bright Yellow. We were doing similar builds. We both had a crap ton of owls out, and he went in for like my last mining base, right? And I was like, that's fine. I'm gonna counterattack him and just, you know, wreck his entire base. And sure enough, I did. But he took my last remaining base, which was the last mining base on the map. He managed to take it, start mining there, build a whole bunch of turrets, and then just starve me out. Like, it really gets to that point with these late games with the owls, and you really have to think about that more so than defending your main base, right? Like, if you've got an expansion over on the side, and that might be one of the last expansions on the map, it's probably a better idea to let them take your base and take out your warrens, because who cares? You're not going to rebuild 9 owls again anyways, right? And we'll have to see. I mean, Fire Ants is doing really well in these engagements for sure, but I just feel like over time, Kerpa's going to get more and more value out of these owls, and it's kind of getting to a weird spot, though, because, you know, with an owl play like this, ideally you want to be taking just a ridiculous amount of gristmills all over the map, and this map really doesn't have a whole lot. I mean, it's a relatively small map, and the only gristmills really left like I said earlier, is that like middle 6-7 o'clock base, and I don't think that's really accessible for either player here. And I actually really like what Fire Ants is doing. Yeah, beautiful play. He's getting this turret line kind of pre-set up, and then I'd like to see him hold on to his money, and then when this Gristmill comes up, just build a ton of turrets, man, because I feel like this is really the answer to Owl players. If you've been struggling in the late game against Owl players and you're not a big fan of going Owl yourself, man, you could just do that crazy World War I Fortress style where you just build an insane amount of turrets. And the turrets will trade effective enough against the mice, but yeah, this is where it's going to get hard. I mean, he's not at the point yet where he can just kind of wait off on his last base and trade his whole main base off and just be like, you know what, I'm going to turtle up on this last expansion. Fire Ants has really got to wait for probably a few more minutes before we're going to get to that phase of the game where it's really going to be this last gristmill right here is going to be it on the map. And Kirpa doing some phenomenal counterattacks and kind of sensing out where armies are positioned and stuff, and that's a really big part of this game, guys, because I mean, besides maybe the lizards, there's not a lot of like flanking with certain units and stuff. It's really a game about constant scouting. Like, if you catch your opponent out of position for a split second, you can go in there and get some serious work done. And we'll have to see. I mean, Fire Ant's holding his own in this engagement, but man, just those mice is just too much, man, and the value that Kirpa's getting over time is absolutely insane coming out of these owls, and it's really difficult to get those snakes in there and target those owls down correctly. And here we go. Kirpa thinks he's got enough and moves in on the turret line, but smartly backs out. I mean, I don't feel like Kirpa really needs to force anything at this point. He should probably give his owls a little bit of time to recover, get their full mice counts out again, and just kind of chill. But at the same time, I feel like Kirpa really needs to be focused on taking out this southern base right here. Out of Fire Ants. And oh, what's up, Ivana Cookie in the chat? Yeah, man, I got to replay first because you had the oldest one submitted to me on the recent patch. So sorry about that, man, but hopefully you enjoy some of these other games. But yeah, I like the main focus of Kirpa right here has to be the southern 6 o'clock base. Like, if he can just manage to take that out, which is of course the most well defended and fortified position out of Fire Ants, then he's in a great position to win this game. And something that Fire Ants might be able to do to come back here is like just take his lizards and come over here and knock out some of these warrens. Like right now, Kirpa is coming around for a counterattack, and we'll have to see. Ooh, the snakes are over there out of position. That's not going to be good. Oh, I would love to see him catch these owls though on the way out. No, great micro out of Kirpa. Deciding I got my mice out, I'm just gonna let my owls come home. Yeah, man, only like 3 snakes were hitting that owl and almost got it down. So, man, that's rough. Like, what do you do in this position? Like, I feel like you can't get out of position on this base that's mining down here in the south, because this base is gonna be the keystone of this entire game. I mean, if Fire Ants can manage to hold on to it and stay alive, he could possibly win this game. I mean, slowly Kirpa's economy is getting worse and worse, but Kirpa thinks he's got the firepower to just come in here and roll over this gristmill, and if that's the case, he will for sure win this game. But at the same time, Fire Ants is getting the momentum. He's taken out the vast majority of Kirpa's standing army there, but pulls back, and like I've been saying, I mean, Fire Ants realizes, okay, as long as I can keep this base alive, I'll be in good shape. And I wonder how he's going to be able to do that here. I'd say like sell that turret. You don't really need any more. Kind of turtle up and just hang on for a little bit longer. I mean, Kirpa's only got 2 farms left. Actually, it looks like, yeah, if he had the money, okay, so he can rebuild there. I'm getting ahead of myself, guys. I thought we were a little further in this game. He does have a little bit of money left on this gristmill, but Fire Ants really can't afford to be coming in here and attacking like this. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to take a favorable engagement against that many free units coming out of Kirpa here. So, Fire Ants just kind of needs to chill back, build up a big standing force, maybe mine this base a little bit more and try to get ahead in economy. But again, Kirpa's got this really good scouting and really good game sense to just constantly come in here and attack when his opponent's army is out of position, and takes that really keystone gristmill I've been talking about. And now Fire Ants is in a bad spot. I think he's got one base he could like technically right here, throw a farm down and maybe stay alive, but I think the writing's on the wall at this point. I mean, Kirpa's still got a phenomenal army up, and there's not a whole lot that Fire Ants can do about it. And it's kind of interesting. Like, I think for this meta, you know, maybe replacing that skunk or maybe the snake with like a falcon would be a good solution, right? Like, I feel like the enemy goes a ton of owls, and you're not running owls of your own. Maybe falcon's the unit to build. And you know, finally, Kirpa is starving himself, but Kirpa's got a couple more farms he can take over here, so it's not going to be a big deal. And you know, Fire Ant's got a handful of units left, and just kind of fighting to his last breath over here, but I think the writing's on the wall. Yeah, he's got 7 seconds left regardless, and you know, maybe he was hoping that there might be somewhere he could throw up a farm, but you know, fantastic game out of both these guys here. Great play out of Kirpa, just showing you, really showcasing how to effectively, you know, scout your opponent out, scout where their army is, you know, attack where they're weak. You know, you gotta be like water, man, like Bruce Lee, dude. You know, you gotta be able to flow. You gotta know when to come in and when to get out. And I think that was done really well that game. And oh, cool. Whew. I'm gonna take a sip of my drink. I'm assuming the sound's alright. Nobody's complaining about it in the chat. So, cool deal. Thank you everybody for joining me on this Halloween night. We're going to keep rocking and rolling with some of these replays here. Let's go into Beefers. Well, no. Yeah, that should be fine. Beefers versus Obscution. In just 1 second. Alright, sorry, trying to keep up with the chat a little bit here. I talked to a couple people about doing show matches. Oh, that might be what these Discord messages are about. Chip's got some last minute submissions. Hell yeah. Alright, Chip. If I can get, I will get at least one of those in. Let me know which one you would like the most, Chip, and I'll add it to the list. Yeah, I see the 4 replays. I do have a whole bunch lined up for tonight, so maybe pick like 1, maybe 2 that you like the best. Let me know which ones those are, and I'll throw them in here. Alright, so for now, let's go to Beefers versus Obscution. Let's do this. Alright, spawning in the 7 o'clock position, we've got Beefers. Great name, by the way. And in top position, we've got Obscution. So let's see here. Oh, I love this build coming out of Beefers. Really unique. This is the kind of stuff. Wolf Toad, OP. Okay. Only. Alright, we'll do that one. But yeah, I really like this build coming out of Beefers here. It's pretty unique in my opinion. You know, he's got Squirrel Toad, and I'm not sure what the verdict is on Toads right now, guys. I'll try to monitor the chat, see what the pro scene thinks of it. But, you know, I feel like I heard something, I think, from Skyraider saying they just kind of require micro now, so people aren't using them as much. But if you're kind of new to the game, like, just a few weeks ago, you really had to, like, if you're going to run Squirrels, you really had to run Toads as well. Because Lizards just kind of dominated Squirrels super hard. And, you know, Lizards still do really well against Squirrels, but not to the same extent that they did because they got a range nerf. But you know, kind of ranting on about stuff that's not this game here, but, you know, actually, this map might be pretty good for what Beefer is trying to go for here. You know, when that previous game we had, where I was kind of explaining, oh, they took I think it was Obscution, actually, if I'm not mistaken, but somebody took barbed wire and it was just really wide open. But with the new map changes that have happened recently, you see a lot more maps like this, which are a little more cluttered and a little more mazy, which can sometimes be a pain in the ass, but a lot of times it makes for some really interesting games because there's a lot more choke points and stuff like that. So, you know, think about how much barbed wire would take for Beefers to maybe, you know, cut off like right here, for example, and secure, you know, 3 gristmills and a campfire for himself, and really like to see that. And, you know, Obscution going for this quick campfire build, which I'd love to see what everybody thinks about that. I like it because I'm kind of a macro player. Like, I like to get ahead on economy and kind of barely hold off the early game rush and get up to something unique. And I feel like the campfire gives you a lot of potential to do that. And also, I mean, the campfire serves a ton of other purposes as well, right? Like, just expanding your territory to new spots so your units can heal up, or maybe you can throw down some defensive structures. But, oh my god, Beefer's going for an insanely early owl here. Let's see if he can pull it off. Let's see if Obscution gets the scout off. Does he turn? Oh, yep, okay, so Obscution did see the tier 3 Warren, and he's most likely assuming that's either an owl or a boar. I think those kind of make the most sense. Well, actually, I say that, but I see a lot of high-level players nowadays kind of rushing up to the wolf, too, so really, if you're in Obscution's position, you're probably assuming it's probably anything but a badger or a fox, and badgers aren't bad right now by any stretch of the imagination, but what made badgers so good back in the day, and it's so weird because Tooth and Tail meta moves so fast, right? Like back in the day, it was like a week or two ago, was that pigeons could stack heal on top of the badger. So one badger could be getting healed by like 15 pigeons at once, and it was very, very difficult to take it down. And then once a badger gets going, their DPS is insane. And I like this move out of Beefers, getting up some barbed wire, kind of creating a choke. Yeah, there's no way to get into his base from over there. Looks like you can actually get through this little forest path here, but Obscution might not be aware of that, or Beefer. Oh, nice placement of the drumfire cannon, but I'd like to see Beefer kind of establish taking some of these higher up bases, yep, and then he can sell that back barbed wire since you get a full refund and move that up to defend his expansion. So, you know, wow, this is actually going to be a pretty good macro game here. You know, both players opting to go ahead and get up an expansion, and they each have a gristmill of their own. Let's see. It looks like when all is said and done, Obscution's going to have 3 gristmills and a campfire on his side of his map, versus 3 gristmills and a campfire for Beefers. So this map isn't really favored towards either player. I feel like Beefer maybe like slightly, barely favored towards Beefers because his expansions are a little more tight-knit and castle-y, where Obscution's is going to be more difficult to defend. And you know, this actually funny. This entire side of the map is just totally off. Like nobody will ever get over there. Which actually makes the map, you know, much smaller than it appears. So, you know, Obscution's kind of in the pressure point here, right? He's more spread out. He does have this good choke, but Beefers can also come in here and attack from this angle. And also Obscution doesn't have any kind of defensive structures or an owl for the hyper late game. And I've been trying to sneak an owl into my builds lately because it just seems like such a good option, man. I mean, if it becomes a game like this where you're going into the mid game and into the late, and you got to remember, Tooth and Tail guys, I consider the mid game like 5 to 8 minutes in, and late game basically anything after that. So, you know, when you get to these types of positions where both players are kind of standing off against one another, the player who's got the owls, who can get up an insane amount of owls, is in a really good position to win. But that, in doing the move that Obscution just did, is exactly what you have to do against it. You know, Obscution is in the role of, I can't just sit back and let Beefers do whatever he wants, right? Because Beefers has the owl, so therefore, if both players just kind of macro up and Beefers take some smart engagements, you know, he should be in a really advantageous spot as the game goes on. And it would be cool to see Obscution kind of sneak his chameleons over to these drumfire cannons in the back and knock those out if he can. These are actually pretty exposed. There's no barbed wire, you know, protecting them or anything like that. And man, I love this new barbed wire, man. It feels really good. You know, the reflecting damage on it. And yeah, the melee units still get it killed, but not for free, man. I mean, it's a pretty big commitment to get in there on some barbed wire and knock it out, even if you've got the chameleons or the lizards. So, you know, I mean, the cards are definitely in Beefer's favor here, I feel like. All he's got to do is sit back, relax, and just build up a ton of owls, right? Like, if he can get that 3rd gristmill really up and mining and get his economy through the roof and get out, you know, maybe 3, 4, 5 owls, it's going to put Obscution in a very difficult spot. So right now, what Obscution needs to be doing is really putting together some kind of attack plan. Like, he's got to figure out some angle he can come in here and get some work done against Beefers, or otherwise this game is just going to spiral out of control into Beefer's favor eventually. Like, I'd really like to see Obscution maybe just sneak his chameleons over here, knock out this drumfire, run away, and that window seems to be ending. Yeah, so he's trying to do that just now. We'll see if he can get anything done. But now that barbed wire is out to protect that drumfire, it's going to be a lot harder. And oh, okay, he does manage to get the gristmill, but will he save all his chameleons is the question. And yes, he does. So fantastic play out of Obscution, and that's really what he needs to be doing here. He can't just sit back and let Beefers do whatever he wants, right? Because otherwise, it's just going to get too far ahead. And, you know, getting out a boar or two, I'm not sure. All right, let's see if there's any real nerds in the chat here. Does anyone know how many boar explosions it would take to clear a bunch of mice, right? Like, if you have 2 boars, is it enough to blow up all the mice? I mean, maybe that's a good answer to a lot of owls as well, right? If you, maybe it's like, I don't think it's 1. I think mice are pretty tanky, but maybe you get like 2 or 3 Uncle Butters. They get in there, shred down the mice, or even just blow up and wipe all those mice, and let your snakes and your squirrels get up and kill the owls. I know it sounds a little crazy, but I'm just kind of thinking on the fly what Obscution could do to deal with this. And you know, Beefers gave up a lot to be able to do this build. I mean, the Fox move is pretty cool. Like, I just have a special place in my heart for the Fox. It's one of my favorite units, but she is not super powerful right now. I don't want to comment and say she's like underpowered or anything like that, but she takes a really long time to attack now compared to what she did a couple patches ago. So you don't see a lot of Foxes lately, but we just saw with that game earlier, Sky Raider versus Chipman. If you get a wolf and a fox together, they go hand in hand pretty well. So yeah, this is kind of getting to that split map position that I feel like Obscution really had to be a little more active to try to prevent earlier, because now it's going to be very difficult. And maybe he's thinking the same thing I did. All right, get up a bunch of boars and you know, blow those up underneath the mice. I'm sorry, I was trying to see if anyone knew. Okay, so Cyborg is saying two boars will clear just about anything. So I think that's what Obscution is doing here. If I was Obscution, I would get out those 2 boars. I would hang the rest of my army back, right? And then let the boars get up, hopefully a little bit on those cannons, and just blow up and take out all the mice that these owls are producing. And granted, Beefer's only got 2 owls right now, so he doesn't have an insane amount, and he should have a 3rd one on the way shortly. He's got 2 foxes coming up as well, which is kind of an interesting pick. I think 2 foxes will be able to one-shot a tier 2 unit, but this kind of situation, I think the money would have just been better spent on the owls here. You know, add that more and more value. And the foxes do take a lot of micro, and they get rooted for I think like 3/4 a second now. But man, Beefers is in just such a great spot, and this map really kind of was in his favor for this type of strategy here, right? With all these little chokes, you know, he didn't have to build an insane amount of barbed wire. Like, he's got 14, but if we really wanted to be super nitpicky, he could probably sell a little bit of that and be a little more efficient with it. But overall, I mean, 13, 14 barbed wire to secure 3 bases and a campfire is a pretty damn good deal in my book. So Beefers is nice and comfortable. Yeah, he gets out those extra owls, and going up to 5 owls and 2 foxes, that is an insane army. And Obscution's got the double board here, so I don't know, man. I'd love to see some sick play out of Obscution, you know, baiting out all those mice onto the boar bombs and blowing them up, and then from there being able to hopefully get onto those exposed owls. But even if he does that, hey, Beefer's still got the foxes, he's still got the drumfire cannons, he's still got the barbed wire. So, you know, I know this might look a little unfair in Beefer's position, but if you're Obscution in this game, and you know, really your move, once you identified that my opponent is going for this like barbed wire defensive owl kind of setup, and you don't have owls of your own, like, you've got to really bring the thunder as quickly as you can. Like, you cannot afford to let them get a drumfire cannon up, and that's where scouting is really, really big in this game, right? Like, drumfire cannons take a very, very long time to build, and it's also 180 food investment, so there's a little bit of a timing window if you're on par with your scouting, and you get in there and you identify, okay, my opponent's trying to build a drumfire cannon or 2. If I move out right now, I can take that out before it gets set up. But the position that Beefers has set up here now is going to be very difficult for Obscution to deal with, and he's got a ton of skunks. I mean, maybe that's the deal with the mice as well. I'm not super sure, but I know you can't. It's easy to say I wish he had this or that, right? But if he had some falcons, man, that would put so much of a hindrance to Beefer's plan. But let's go. Let's see how this happens here. Uncle Butters are not doing anything crazy like trying to kamikaze in. And man, even with the flamethrowers and the skunks, those owls got a lot of work done. But really, Obscution only lost, well, he lost like 3 or 4 tier 2 units. And Beefer's, I don't think actually lost anything. He didn't even use his squirrels there. And that's another thing too. If you're an owl player, guys, I mean the mice are going to build up after 60 seconds, so you might as well just send them in there, you know, and get some free value out with them. Man, this is nuts, dude. He's going up to 3 foxes. I wonder what the point of the foxes are here. Maybe he just likes the unit. I like the unit too. It's cool, but really all he needs at this point is more owls, and that's why it feels dangerous to me to not run owls on the ladder right now, because if you get stuck in this kind of position, it feels really difficult to deal with. I'd love to see if Obscution can show us how to handle it here, and certainly you don't have to pick owls, but again, if you're not picking owls, you need to have a really solid early or mid-game plan, right? Because once the game gets to this position, it is very difficult for the non-owl player to come back. Or I mean, even having, I mean, I've won games against my opponent that was owling when I had nothing. Wow, he actually managed to snipe a little base there. But I did it through turrets, right? Like if you have turrets and your opponent is set up, like imagine Obscution had turrets, he could essentially build a ton of turrets on this high ground right here. And then as the mice come in, like yeah, they're gonna kill a turret or two, but the turret, if you have like an insane amount of turrets, right? Like 15, 20 turrets, you can deal with those mice pretty effectively. I think I did that in the Clash of Comrades tournament in the qualifiers. Yeah, my opponent went owls and I had a fox and a whole bunch of turrets, and was able to just kind of keep the turrets to maintain a lot of the map and use the fox to gain value over time. That's certainly a way you can combat this owl style of play. But another key thing that's important against this owl style play is you really can't afford to be in this split map situation either, because the owl player can get so much of an economy out, and this is interesting. Now, Beefers actually ran out of money here because he got such a strong economy out so quickly. Beefers has to end the game like now, or he's just simply gonna lose. That is crazy. He mined out all of his bases before Obscution mined, and look how close that was too. It's not like he mined them out by a lot. I mean, Obscution's got 1 base left, kind of chilling over here, and that's actually another really good high-level strategy. Is if you think that the game is going to come down to like a split map position like this, if you hold off on taking a farm until as long as you can, and man, if Obscution can manage to hold off right here, he should win this game. It's going to be so close, holy crap. Beefer's got 5 seconds. Yeah, that's going to be it, man. Wow. Great play out of Obscution. You know, if you want to, well, there we go. It looked like Beefers was ahead the entire game with how many owls he had, but sure enough, man, you know, driving for a hard economy early on is going to leave you with less economy later, and if you start starving, if you're not mining, you lose the game. So great patient play out of Obscution, kind of hanging on in those engagements as best he could, and finally able to outlast his opponent. Great submission. Okay, what do we got next here? That was number 5. All right. Okay. So we are going to go into Bannered Bastion versus Spartak. Sorry about the awkward pause, guys. I was just kind of watching the chat. And then maybe I'll sneak in a chip game. Well, let's see. Let me see what we got. Okay, so what we'll do... How are we doing on time? We're doing great on time. So we'll do Bannered Bastion versus Spartak, and then we'll go into Hercrus versus Nikki. Then I'll sneak in a chip game. And then I've got Classic Metal versus Spartak from the tournament over the weekend. Was one of the top 8 games that went uncasted. So Classic Metal was nice enough to shoot it over my way to cast rather for your enjoyment. So we'll get into that here shortly. But let's go into Bannered Bastion versus Spartak. All right. Spawning in the 7 o'clock-ish position is Bannered Bastion. And of course, in the 3 to 4 o'clock position is Spartak. And Spartak played phenomenally over the tournament, man. Like, such incredible games, man. You know, Chip and Mishi and Spartak seem really evenly matched, and some really great games that came out of them. If you haven't seen them, man, I recommend heading over to the Clash of Comrades channel. They probably got a YouTube channel too because they got their crap together. Hey, watch those VODs, man. Like, they're really good. And so, yeah, like on a map that's this is what I'm talking about with these new maps, guys. Like, you see how it's really kind of mazy, lots of choke points and stuff, and I think that really kind of gears the meta more towards barbed wire, in my opinion, because, you know, think about how much barbed wire it would take for Spartak right here to kind of choke off an expansion or two. And speaking of which, you know, Spartak's got to realize that he is not looking so hot on these expansions. Well, I don't know, like, both players kind of have a natural base, right? Like, Banner Bastion's got this one right here, and Spartak's got this one here. These two in the middle look at first glance like they're favored to Banner Bastion, but I think it's going to be hard for either player to get that down. But Banner Bastion also has 2 extra campfires in his favor, so yeah, I'm going to have to say this map is definitely geared a little towards Bastion, and I think the response out of Spartak has got to be a really aggressive early to middle game play. You know, maybe he goes for like just a 1 base all-in type of deal. Maybe a 2 base play, but you know, Spartak can't just sit around and let this game go to the mid and late game, right? Because just mathematically, Bastion should be ahead. So I think Spartak's really got to be aggressive on taking map control, kind of keeping Bastion contained. I mean, they both got the turret, which I think the turret's a well-rounded addition to any deck because it allows you to do these like containy. Like, imagine, yeah, I was about to say, imagine if Bastion just threw a turret right there, right? It's gonna make the spot a lot more defensible for him, and Spartak hoping he can get on this turret before it finishes and just barely manages to. And if he is the chameleon gonna stay alive is the question. The snake is about I think it lived. Yeah, did it live? No, it must have died. Yeah, it must have died. No, it's there. Oh, I'm on the wrong vision. Derp. Yeah, okay, it's alive for now, but 2 stacks of poison should be enough to finish it off, and there it goes. So really scrappy so far, and you know, chameleon versus snake is kind of interesting to watch too. Just there's a lot of micro involved with that. I mean, re-stealthing your chameleon before it gets to the point where it's taking too many poison stacks. And I like this move out of Spartak as well, going ahead and deciding he's going to get up on economy. But again, you know, he really can't. Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Get that middle base, man. If he can take this under Banner Bastion's nose, which he's not doing technically. I mean, Bastion's aware that Spartak is taking this expansion, but I love that play too. That gristmill behind him gave him just enough territory to start building a turret before this gristmill finished. And this is why I like turrets so much, man, because they really make these games interesting, both as a player and as a spectator, because it really lets you dictate where the front lines are and where engagements are going to happen, and gives you a spot to retrieve. Unfortunately, Spartak's selling that back turret. Well, alright, the new one lives. It's always a good plan too, guys, is, you know, that first turret that he made on that low ground was just kind of like the let me get into position turret, and then you kind of leapfrog your turrets forward as you get more and more of them. So, man, I'd even love to see Spartak throw another turret down here and just really say this zone is mine. And, you know, if Spartak manages to make this the front line right here, the map actually swings in his favor pretty considerably because he gets an extra gristmill out of the deal. And yeah, Banner Bastion gets 2 campfires, that's great, but that's only worth 2 farms. So Spartak should come out in the end as long as he can keep this map together. And a lot of players are opting for chameleons and snakes and stuff, so ferrets aren't super popular in the meta right now. And it's another one of those things where I don't think anything's wrong with ferrets. I mean, you still see ferrets get played at a high level. Ferrets are kind of difficult to use with the micro involved, but I personally love running ferrets because it really, like, imagine if Spartak had ferrets right here. You know, you could just sit there and poke from his front line and take out basically everything at Banner Bastion's there. But, you know, at the same time, ferrets are a really big trade-off because in a direct engagement, something like a snake or a chameleon or a falcon is just going to output a lot more damage than the ferret. So the ferret's really giving up a lot to get that increased range, and I feel like it's in a pretty good balanced stage right now. And Banner is kind of doing this dance. Yeah, actually really well done. Floating a little bit of money, waiting for his boar, and Spartak's doing the same thing. It can kind of get frustrating when it's like right at the end like this. You're like, oh, I can fit out one more farm, but you really don't want to supply block that boar. So manages to get it out with only like 30 extra food to spare. That's still really good timing. And That's really going to make or break this game. Wow, actually looking at it, and look at this. They're like dead center even on their armies. Like, the only difference is Spartak has a turret and Banner Bastion has more pigeons. But, I mean, Spartak does have his economy going first, so he can get out maybe some more squirrels or more snakes or whatever he's feeling. And he goes for the squirrels. Makes sense. And still, though, these armies are really well balanced, and I love that kind of stuff that Spartak just did too there, where, you know, he had kind of 2 turrets up there, but now that he's like, okay, I feel pretty confident, my tier 3's almost up, now it is up, I don't need both these turrets up here, right? And those snakes getting caught a little bit out of position for Spartak, and these chameleons coming in here and getting some work done. Love to see how this pans out. Banner's boar is going to blow up first. Oh, double explosion. Everything dies. Amazing. Gotta love it. And I love this play, man. I'm always not sure if it's the right move to make. It feels like it is, but I can kind of confirm because these both guys are pretty high-level players. But if you notice, both players immediately sold their Tier 3 Warren right after the unit died, because they're saying, okay, look, I gotta reinforce my entire army right now. Another boar is 180 food. That's just money I'm not going to be able to save up for, so I'll go ahead and get 180 food back for selling that Tier 3 Warren and be able to reinforce with my other Warrens a little more quickly. And it's going to get both players re-maxed out, you know, fairly quickly and really even here. I mean, Spartak barely has a little bit of an army lead with a couple extra squirrels, but we'll have to see how this plays out. I mean, it's going to come down to micro, and Bastion doing a good job getting poison stacks on his enemies' snakes there, and sure enough, that was enough. So, yeah, great game there for sure. I like how Spartak was like. I think my favorite thing about that game was Spartak identified really early on, okay, I have to draw the battle line forward, right? If he just let Banner Bastion set up his front line where he wanted to, Spartak was never going to be able to gain control of enough of those gristmills going into the middle game. And yeah, I think Spartak really showed you there, like just with a couple turrets, how you can really get over like map imbalances and stuff, you know, kind of moving out, being aggressive, and claiming map control and map presence. Great game for sure. And of course, that double boar bomb was pretty amazing. Alright, so that was Banner Bastion versus Spartak. I want to get in this Hercules versus Nikki game. Let me go ahead. No, actually, you know what? Okay, what I'll do is I'll do this Hercules versus Nikki game. I'll take maybe like a 4 or 5 minute break, and I'll load up the replay from Chip, and then we'll come back, we'll knock out the game from Chip, and then we'll knock out this best of 3 between Classic Metal and Spartak. I think that sounds like a plan. So, without further ado, let's hop into Hercules versus Nikki. And then if we have bonus time, I do have some more submissions from Hercules and Nikki we can go into. And maybe I'll run it a little longer if you guys are hanging out with me tonight. It is Halloween after all, right? So, alright, let's do it, guys. Okay, spawning in the 10 o'clock position, we've got Hercules. And in about the 4 o'clock is, of course, Nikki. And let's see, let's take a look at these decks here. Really interesting stuff coming out of Nikki, man. He's kind of got this smorgasbord of a setup here, and he's got a lot of tier 2s to choose from, and I feel like it's pretty safe to say that we're still in this like tier 2 heavy meta right now. Like a lot of the, I think every tier 2 unit's pretty viable in its own way, and there's not really a tier 2's I feel like tier 2's in a really good spot, because to me it feels like every unit's viable, and there's no like clear winner in tier 2, right? Where it's like, you know, oh, chameleons are strictly better than the other units and you should only run chameleon. Like, it's not like that. I feel like all the tier 2 units are in a really good spot. So Nikki giving himself a lot of options here, you know, deciding, all right, maybe if my opponent goes for something crazy like ferrets or owls, I got the falcons to hard counter that. I got the skunks for a lot of tier 1. And I'm assuming the chameleons are probably the intended plan, right? Because chameleons seem pretty bread and butter nowadays of just, you know, getting those out, getting them to help tank the front lines, and especially in the like early to mid game too, right? Where the chameleons aren't going to just get mowed down immediately. I mean, if they can sit there and battle and tank a whole bunch and manage to make it out successfully, you can get a ton of value. And looks like Herker's going to go, well, he thought about it. Both these guys opted to get up a couple of warrens before fully saturating their farms here, so maybe it's out of respect for each other, maybe they have plans to be aggressive, and I feel like if you're going to be aggressive, you should really be using lizards, and Herker's got to be careful because this high ground outside of his base can be very, very deadly if Nikki can get over there, and that's why Hercules has decided to go ahead and keep his squirrels up on that high ground, and Nikki's going for this kind of standard, get 3, maybe 4 tier 1 warrens out, and Hercules is going for this kind of a newer style, which was like, get up all my 8 farms, get out a couple tier 1 warrens, and then head straight for your favorite tier 2 play. And really interested to see the Fox coming out here. I mean, the Fox is my personal favorite unit, and right now it's not super meta, and it is. I think it's objectively a little bit weak, but I don't think it's unplayable. I mean, we saw that game earlier, especially with the Wolf and the Fox together. They can get some serious stuff done, but I don't think you have to commit to running a Wolf to use a Fox. It's just, Fox to me kind of feels like a really late game investment. It's not going to get the amount of value immediately as it used to, but if you can keep that thing alive and the game drags on 4 or 5 minutes after the Fox is made and you're slowly but surely getting more and more value out of it, it's going to be huge. But Nikki, with this beautiful counterattack, decides not to, or not really counterattack per se, but great positioning, kind of lured Hercules away from his turret and was kind of positioning himself to come in and attack, and I guess noticed the snakes and decided, what, I better not go in for now. And Hercules is in a good position here for sure. I mean, the turrets, I like defensive structures, but if you're going to be like hyper competitive, it's a really hard call, like when to make turrets, when to sell turrets, because if you think about it, like if we both go to the split map situation and you build a ton of defense early and I don't, and that defense doesn't really gain you value, that's money I invested in a faster army or a faster economy, and I can always get out my defensive structures later if I really need to. So you gotta consider stuff like that, right? Like a couple turrets on the map, it's not the biggest deal in the world, but it is 120 food if they're not getting a whole lot done. And I like this leapfrog tactic coming out of Hercules here. I kind of mentioned earlier, like make your turrets and slowly get them more and more forward, and now those turrets are in a really good position, I feel like, because they're kind of zoning most of the map here. Like, sure, there is this other attack path, Nikki can come up from the side, but you gotta take a risk somewhere, and it feels like Hercules is taking a little bit of a risk, saying, alright, I'm gonna make that my stand, and let's see. Hercules decides he's got enough and tries to take this high ground, but lizards are nothing to slouch against, man. People think because their range got reduced they're bad, but Nikki took that engagement very handedly there with his lizards versus squirrels. So Hercules is definitely gonna have to be more careful than that, especially if he's planning on getting a Fox out, and he does have the economy to afford it. But again, it's really rough with these turrets. Like, I'd almost like him to sell these turrets just for like a split second, get enough money for the Fox, and then start building the turrets again as soon as he can. But at the same time, that could be a game-losing decision if Nikki decided to move in right now, which he does, and the turrets are enough to scare him away for now. So Nikki's not in a bad spot either, though. I mean, he's got his second base going. He doesn't have any campfires available to him. I guess the map feels like it's geared towards Hercules, but there's nothing saying Nikki can't come down here to the 6 o'clock base, and hell, maybe even the 7 o'clock base and secure those. So, it's not completely favored towards Hercules. And I'd love to see Nikki, with all these lizards, do some kind of like flank attack just with the lizards and hit that northern campfire. That'd be really cool. But again, that's a risk to do something like that, because then all your lizards are out of position if Hercules decides to just counterattack. We'll have to see. Nikki is still kind of deciding whether or not he wants to engage into these turrets, and it's a really tough call. And now Hercules has his Fox out, so Hercules really needs to start playing the micro game here and just starting to snipe off as much as he possibly can with that Fox. And you got to remember, I mean, any tier 3 unit, for it to be quote-unquote worth it, you really have to get like 360 food worth of damage done. So that's 18 tier 1 kills that this Fox has got to rack up. And so if Hercules is gonna get to that amount of value, he's really got to get to work soon. And I'll have to see. I haven't seen a lot of Fox play recently, so I'd like to see how effective it is, even with a little bit more of a slow attack than it used to have. And looks like Nicky's trying to find that flank I was talking about a little earlier, seeing if he can kind of sneak around his lizards, but that route really didn't seem that bad, to be honest. Like, maybe I'll start running foxes again, I don't know, but yeah, I'd like to see Nicky finish up with that base, maybe throw down an Owl Warren, and I'd like to see Nicky start making a play for the 6 o'clock base, right? Because he's really got to start getting some map control and start saying, this is my territory. And Hercules is kind of already planting his flag a little bit by taking this campfire over here, and good micro out of Hercules, starting to get that fox value he really needs. I think he's up to maybe 4 or 5 tier 1 kills on it, so he's getting there slowly over time. And if this game does end up going longer and longer, the fox will get more and more value. So as long as this micro is good, and it's really, you got to be really careful with all that water. And Nicky's going to come in and engage right on top of that fox, and looks like he's going to get it. That's a huge win for Nicky. I mean, Hercules really could not afford to lose that fox there. And right now, I'd like to see Hercules go ahead and just sell off that fox warren, because he is not going to get that thing out again. It's just too expensive. And if you're, there is counterplay to that too, guys. Like, if you want to be a fox player, or maybe a badger might be more relevant in the current meta, and your opponent, hyper goes all in on that unit, if you just micro your unit, your opponent's army is only going to be targeting your fox, right? So all your other units are just getting free shots on it the longer and longer he tries to commit to attacking that certain enemy. And Nicky really pressing the advantage here. He smells blood in the water, and he decides, now is the time for me to try to maintain some of this map control that I've been talking about. And I mean, let's see where they're at afterwards. And pretty close, right? Like, Hercules has a couple snakes, or pigeons rather, sure, but Nicky's gonna get a lot of chameleons out. I'm really interested to see what Hercules decides to do with this fox. And right now it looks like he just wants to kind of lick his wounds and save up enough money for another fox. And it's a big investment, but if he gets the work done with it, it could pay off here. We'll have to see. And this bottom of the map is really where the engagements should start getting focused, because it's really going to come down to who can control this 6 o'clock and 7 o'clock gristmill over here. So we'll have to see if Nicky manages to hold on to it. He does have it for now. Is Hercules aware? Oh, Hercules doesn't even know a gristmill exists there. So that could put Nicky in a very good spot if Hercules keeps taking these advantages, kind of where, like, it's kind of complicated, right? Like, you want to take fights in positions where winning the fight is going to grant you tempo that you can get something done with, right? So if Hercules decided to take the fight a little closer to this gristmill and he won the fight, then Hercules would have enough momentum and have enough tempo before Nicky could create a new army to get in there and get some damage done to a gristmill or something like that. So try to keep that in mind when you're kind of picking where you want your fights to be on the map. You want to kind of think about what are you going to do after the fight is done, and how are you going to really push your advantage and get some real significant damage done to your opponent. And Hercules has got to know now. I don't think he's actually scouted it. Yeah, he's got to know something's up, though, because Nicky is kind of starting to make an effort to defend this southern position here, and Nicky's got to be careful, man. I'm not sure where all his... Yeah, he hasn't ordered... Oh, he's doing the chameleon attack! Does he get the fox? Yeah, that is such a great strategy, man, and I wish people would have thought about that when the fox was more popular, because I was saying that for a while, and Andy kind of beat my ass with it a little bit at the booth and at TwitchCon, where, because it was an older patch we were playing with, right, before the fox nerf, so I was just sitting there running fox over and over, and then sure enough, Andy comes up on me with like 4 chameleons and just wrecks me, and it's a really good answer, and really well played by Nicky. To go in there, not just on a fox, guys. I mean, you could really do that with chameleons on any tier 3 unit, besides, of course, the owls. So it's something really hard to play against. I mean, at this point, Hercules should be aware that Nicky has chameleons. So if you're in Hercules' shoes and you're like, how do I play against the chameleon? Really, you kind of have to, like, try to figure out where the chameleon is based on your opponent's rat's movement, his commander's movement, right? And especially if you know for a fact your opponent's running chameleons, if you have a fox, you should probably be trying to just keep it moving as much as possible, especially when your commander's kind of around it. Oh, last patch, commander would show chameleons. Fox shoots at chameleons. That sucks. That's a good fix they did, though. Oh, that's probably why people weren't doing what I was saying. That's why I'm glad some of these high-level guys watch the show and can correct me when I say some nub stuff. I appreciate it. Alright, so I love this forward position out of Hercus here, but you gotta be careful when you have snakes, man. You know, the snakes are very slow-moving units, and Nikki really capitalized on the snakes being slightly out of position here and just kind of decimated them in that engagement and managed to keep most of his chameleons alive. But the chameleons, once they get that poison stack or two on them, keep calling them snacks. The poison snack, I guess it is Halloween, right? Well, I guess people probably don't want poison snacks, but still. And again, man, Hercus losing that fox, and Hercus really got to just give up on this fox for right here, right? I mean, that's the second, maybe the third one he's lost. So I'd really love to see him to just sell that Warren and maybe get out some more snakes. It'd definitely be the better call here. Especially I've been noticing at the high level specifically, you know, if you lose your tier 3 warrant, or if you use your tier 3 warrant unit, go ahead and just sell that warrant and use that extra money to reinforce your army instead of trying to push it. But instead, Hercus is going to decide, you know what, I'm going to win with this damn fox, and starts building either fox number 3 or fox number 4, and it's really got to pay off for him here. And to be fair, Nikki doesn't have a whole lot of warrens, right? Like, Hercus's army is bigger in every sense of the word. You know, he's got 6 pigeons. Well, I guess, yeah, he's going to have 6 pigeons and a fox versus 2 extra chameleons that Nikki has compared to the snake count out of Hercus. But Hercus's economy is still going really strong here. And that's starting to make me worry for Nikki a little bit. I mean, Nikki does have this base coming up, but this is a point of contention, right? And that's another thing about the concept of tempo, right? Because think about it, okay? If Nikki wins this fight, then Nikki is not going to be in a good position to turn around and get something done. Whereas if Hercus wins this fight, he can easily just walk right over and annihilate this very, very critical gristmill out of Nikki. And that's exactly why Hercus is kind of reinforcing this territory here. And he's taking this gristmill most likely to just help out in the engagement, or hell, even expand his territory a little, you know, further and make some turrets even closer to the enemy base. And, you know, Hercus is well aware of these mines now, so I like to see some counterplay from him. I mean, maybe running the fox over the mines and just detonating a couple, or a snake if you don't want to be that crazy and risk your fox. And Nikki's saying, I'm going to go now before these turrets finish, and comes in here for the big engagement. Let's see if he's going to have enough. He used most of his chameleons to get to the backline and kill the fox, but I don't think the fox was really the big threat there. I mean, Hercus just has a better economy at this point and just more stuff, and I think he's really going to win this game due to math. And great play out of both those guys, and really, I like how Nikki really showcased how you can use chameleons to take out some of those high-end tier 3 units. So, let me see. I am going to take a short break, maybe, well, it's going to be like a 4-minute break or so, guys. I mean, talking nonstop. I got to cough a couple times, and my voice is getting a little parts here. So give me a few minutes. I'm going to get Chip's game that he just submitted, and we're going to go into that next. And then we've got Classic Metal versus Spartak, games 1 through 3 from the tournament over the weekend. And hell, if you guys stick around with me, man, I got a bunch of extra replays submitted by Nikki, a couple extras by Chip, so I'll take the stream a little longer if you guys want to hang out with me. So give me a few minutes to take a break from talking, guys, clear my throat, grab something to drink, and I'll be back in just a bit. Alright, what is up, everybody? Let me just quickly... okay. Let's quickly throw a replay or two in the batch for my man Chip. Should just take me a second here. Boom. Cool, perfect. Alright. No more break screen. Show screen. Cool. Alright, so where's it at? Alright, so this is a last minute submission from Chip. Wolf and Toads. Should be pretty good. Alright, let's hop into it. Alright, spawning in the south position. Everybody knows him. We've got Chip from space. And in the top right, center rightish, we've got Connorman Prime. Interesting. I don't think I've seen him before, but it's probably a relatively good player if he gets queued up against Chip here. So we'll have to see how this game progresses. Taking a look at builds, I like Connorman's build a lot. It seems pretty bread and butter at this point. You know, maybe throwing in a pigeon. You know, again, I feel like it's kind of a really, really strong tier 2 meta. But hold that thought, you know, Chip going for a relatively quick Squirrel Warren here. You know, maybe he's got aggression on his mind, and Chip is normally a big fan of early game play, so wouldn't surprise me too much to see that happening. Or maybe, yeah, no, instead he's just being safe, and you can tell because he queued up that extra farm, guys. So if you have a farm queued, you're not going to be producing units. So it's a good way to like throw down a Warren to be safe, but then also kind of get your economy out a little quicker by delaying how fast those squirrels come out. So overall, both players are practically at the exact same position here. Nobody going for anything too crazy. Connorman has not queued up his last farm yet. Instead, opts to get out a couple more Warrens, and the way he's kind of dancing around, no, okay, he is going to go ahead and take that 8th farm. And let's see, I mean, the spawns in this map are pretty close together. A lot of the expansions kind of gear out towards the left of the map. So I don't want to say this is kind of, well, I mean, it's obviously Chip favors some, right? Because Chip's got this nice natural expansion right outside of his base. He's got this nice campfire here. So I'd really like to see Connorman Prime, you know, go for a really aggressive early game style. Try to prevent Chip's economy from getting out of hand, and then, you know, if Connorman decides to go ahead and expand over this way, he can get some real work done. And good move out of Connorman here. He kind of debated whether or not he wanted to move out with his squirrels, so he left them behind to where they'd be safe. You know, didn't overcommit and went out, got the scout out on his opponent, and I believe he did. He should have seen. He did not see that tier 3 Warren, really. No, he hasn't seen it yet. Let's see if he sees it this time around. It's really important. Okay, so he does manage to get that scout out on that tier 3 Warren that's coming out from Chip, and that's a really greedy tier 3 Warren, to be honest. I think that's about as greedy as you can go and still be a little safe, is get out like 2 tier 1 Warrens and head straight up to the wolf. And you know, I saw Mishi do this in the tournament and was not a believer in it, to be honest, but Mishi ended up winning the game. So I mean, maybe there is a lot to be said about a fast wolf. I mean, you can use it for a variety of reasons. I mean, you could use it to just get your economy going harder, and if you actually get into an engagement, that wolf is going to buff the hell out of your units. But Connorman is doing exactly what you need to do in this kind of position. You know, if you look at the difference in army right now, Connorman's got several more squirrels, he's got a snake, and you know, maybe he respects Chip a little too much and decides to turn around, but that was really his timing attack window. If he would have moved in there, the wolf would have been miles away from finishing, and he could have maybe done critical damage to Chip. So instead, Connorman is deciding to just get up to an absolutely insane amount of squirrels and kind of hold off for now and see where it's going to go. But yeah, it's easy to say when you're the observer of a game and you kind of got the all-seeing eye, right? And you know everything. But if Connorman would have moved in there, you know, he probably would have been able to knock Chip out. But instead, he's playing safe. He respects Chip a lot. He's going to go ahead and let Chip get this natural expansion for now, which is going to make engaging into this even harder because that Gristmill will tank shots from your army, and so therefore Chip's army is going to be having higher DPS output than Connorman's will. But Connorman does have a crap ton of squirrels here, so he's not in a terrible spot himself, and he is securing this left of the map, and if Connorman can keep that up... Oh, wow. I love this play out of Chip. I didn't even notice it, so I imagine Connorman probably hasn't as well, and that's a really good move to make, because if there's kind of a campfire that's a little bit out of the way on the map, man, just go over there and take it. Like, if you hold the campfire for 1 minute, it's paid itself off. I mean, even if Connorman realizes it exists now, I mean, what is he going to do? He can't just move his entire army over there to take that campfire out, or else he'll be out of position. But look at this. I keep asking about toads and if they're good or not, and maybe Chip is going to display that to us this game, because he's got several of his own, and even though there's no lizards, I mean, if toads can get up on the enemy's squirrels, and you know what, maybe with the wolf buffing their movement speed, make it a little easier, it's going to be a big deal. And these chameleons also tanking. A couple of the toads managed to engage, but we'll see how much this wolf really adds to the fight here. It's what it's going to come down to, and just look at all that extra damage coming out of Chip's army, but it's just not enough, and Connorman's able to secure that win for now. And this is where it gets really tough, though, man, because your gut instinct tells you to do this exactly right here. Like, come in, okay, I won the fight, I've got the tempo, but Chip didn't get totally wiped out in that army. I mean, in that engagement, he kept his wolf alive, and he's reproducing at a really good rate. So Chip was able to hold on with that defender's advantage, and that's a really easy pitfall to make as a new player, is when you win a fight, but you don't win it by like a landslide. You want to come in there and get an attack done, kind of like the tempo concept I was talking about last game. But you gotta be really careful, because defender's advantage in this game is very, very huge. So I think what kind of happened there was Connorman took a really, really good first engagement, and he should have just kind of pulled back. And that second engagement, I feel like Chip kind of caught up a little bit. But in the meantime, man, I mean, Connorman's economy is kind of going through the roof compared to Chip's. I don't think campfires are represented on your farm count, but even still, if you look at the income graph, Connorman's got a pretty sizable lead there, and especially once these last couple farms finish up on his second base. But Connorman's giving Chip time to recover from that first engagement. He didn't go in there and finish off that second base or anything like that immediately. So now Chip had an opportunity to go ahead and resaturate up his farm, and Chip should be at the economic lead now. You can see that on the graph based on the campfire. So we'll have to see. Chip decides now's the time to pull the trigger. Get some fantastic toad engagements there. Jeez, man. And you know what? I think it's really the chameleons and the wolf kind of synergizing together with the toads, because the chameleons come in there and they're such heavy tanks that they give your toads an opportunity to get up on those enemy squirrels, especially with the wolf buffing up the speed of everything. And short and sweet, man. That's what I really like to see out of high-level players, is they know when to pull the trigger. Chip kind of ran some quick numbers in his head and said, okay, I'm far ahead enough now, I can go in there and end the game. So fantastic game sense coming out of Chip for sure. All right, so what are we doing next? Oh yeah, we're gonna go into, okay, so this is Classic Metal vs. Spartak, one of the top 8 games that did not get streamed over the weekend. I feel bad because I didn't have an opportunity to watch the games. I watched a little bit when I had a chance on Saturday, but I was really busy on Saturday this week around, and obviously Icebox just had his baby, so we weren't able to help out casting like we normally do. But the games I did watch were awesome. Best Team Maker, Shoofly did a phenomenal job casting. I saw, what did I see? I got to see Chip versus Mishi, and the winners kind of near the finals, and then Mishi versus Spartak. No, I'm sorry, it was Chip versus Spartak, and Chip beat Spartak. And then I saw Mishi versus Spartak, where Mishi beat Spartak. And then I didn't get to watch the grand finals, unfortunately. So I definitely have some catching up to do. Maybe I'll throw those VODs on tonight after I get done casting or something as I'm going to bed. But definitely check those games out, man. The tournaments out of Clash of Comrades have all been phenomenal and really cool stuff. Great production value. So without further ado, the next 3 games will be a best of 3 between Classic Metal and Spartak. Just pretend like you don't know the who won this. Don't look up the bracket or anything like that, guys. Have some fun with me here on this wonderful Halloween night. I'm disappointed, man. I never get to hand out candy to the kids. Like, no matter where I live, do people just not trick-or-treat anymore? Like, I don't understand it, man. To be fair, I've lived on good sides of town, I've lived on bad sides of town, but no matter where I'm living, like, there's just never any trick-or-treaters. It always gets me disappointed, because me and my wife, we'll be, like, watching horror movies, maybe have a little bit of beer or something, hanging out, looking forward to handing out candy to the kids, and I don't know, man. When I was a kid, trick-or-treating was amazing. I had a ton of fun. But no worries. I got you guys to keep me company. I was kind of expecting I'd have to like pause the game, be like, hang on, I gotta go, answer the door for some trick-or-treaters real quick and put on my scary mask, but not this year, unfortunately. So thanks for hanging out, everybody, on Halloween. We'll hop into this next match, Classic Metal vs. Spartak. Let's do it. Alright, spawning in the southern position is Spartak. And in the top left, Classic Metal. And I really, I hadn't seen a lot of Spartak before this last tournament, and he did phenomenally. I think he placed, third, that's really good. But Classic Metal was in the previous tournaments, and he had a really cool playstyle I enjoyed of this, masked squirrel or, contain with turrets, and that's why I really like seeing turrets in your deck, because it just gives you so much flexibility, right? Like, if Classic Metal felt like it, he could, maybe get out a couple quick squirrels and take this campfire and try to set up some turrets right here outside of Spartak's base and just be really annoying. I think doing stuff like that and kind of taking advantage of the random map style of the game is really cool. And I'm really digging this desert map, but yeah, this is a really wide spread out map we've got here. There's not a lot of doodads, not a lot of choke points. Gristmill positioning seems relatively even, I guess a little bit in Classic Metal's favor, but again, this is a really high-end, high-level play game, right? So most likely we'll see maybe 2-base play, maybe 3-base if it really comes down to that, but a lot of these games at this level are kind of decided in the mid-game, right around when people are trying to take that second base or, right around after that's been established and you're on that 2-base economy. Which sometimes is not true. Sometimes you do get some really crazy, epic, high-level games that stretch out forever, but the players have got to be really, really toe-to-toe for that to happen. I mean, any competitive game is kind of like tennis, right? Like, if you're a better tennis player than I am, it doesn't matter how many games we play. Like, you're just always going to win. And, Tooth and Tail is kind of like that in a sense where you can sneak up some crazy strategies, but the level of skill of the players is really what's going to determine game length. Outside of stuff like cheeses or all-ins that might catch you off guard, if players are pretty well tiered up, well balanced, well evenly matched, it can go to a mid game or a late game and get some really, really cool concepts. And we don't see anything like a lizard here, so big counterattack plays are probably not going to happen, but I mean, look at these builds so far. This has definitely got to be a representation of the current meta here. I mean, these guys are literally toe-to-toe in what they're doing. I mean, both players opted for 9 squirrels, for a chameleon warren, and a campfire at this point. So, I mean, Spartak, I guess, is quote-unquote, slightly ahead because he got his campfire just a little bit earlier, but, little tiny things like that aren't going to make the biggest deal in the world, right? So, let's see what the players decide to do from here. I mean, I like throwing on the pigeons. I'd really like to talk to some of these guys that are cutting the pigeons and see what the theory is behind that. Maybe they just want a little more flexibility. Like, it looks like Classic Metal cut his pigeons to be able to fit a drumfire cannon in, right? So, you'll have to see if that cannon's utilized this game or not. And Classic Metal going for that style we all know him so well for, getting up to just a crazy amount of squirrels, and it's not a bad play, to be honest, and really good move, taking out that campfire almost immediately. If you could save he loses one chameleon, but, very smartly backs out. This is a tournament match, so you don't want to, you got to be careful, right? I mean, these guys are in a high-pressure situation. They got a lot of nerd cred on the line here. Interestingly enough, Classic Metal decided to cancel that campfire, unless I missed it being taken out, but I don't think Spartak moved his army over there just yet, so, it's kind of in an interesting spot, right? Like, Classic Metal's slightly ahead on army, I guess not, just a little bit, whereas Spartak, if Classic Metal sits around and lets Spartak chill for a little bit, he's going to take a significant lead by having his second base up and running so much faster than CM over here. And Classic Metal's floating a lot of food, which is not something you see at high level play, so I wonder what he's saving up for. It looks like he just wanted to go ahead and establish a nice turret base there. Not doing anything crazy. I was wondering maybe if he was going to try to throw down an owl. Let's see what he's thinking. Oh, there it is. Okay. That's why he took the Drumfire over the Pigeon, right? And what a fantastic position to set up a nice containy front line, because, this is going to be the most common attack path. I mean, yeah, sure, Spartak could swing like all the way over here, but I think part of that, unless Spartak is really careful, will still be under the Drumfire cannon. And this is where the Drumfire cannon feels really difficult, to take out, because it's not like Classic Metal just went to rush up for it immediately. He got a huge army out. He got some turrets to protect it out first, and then he goes up there and throws in the Drumfire cannon. And Spartak did try to, he recognized, okay, I got to take this Drumfire cannon out before it's finished, but didn't quite have the army, and he also did lose his commander in that fight, which makes it to where you can no longer micro. So, Classic Metal's in a pretty commanding lead here. The game's really the ball's really in Spartak's court. Spartak's got to do something crazy to get back into this, and it's exactly what he's doing here. And he tries to sneak a gristmill that he assumes Classic Metal's not going to scout for a while, and that's going to give Classic Metal a lot of bad information, because what Classic Metal is doing right now is he's constantly scoping this expansion, and he's saying, okay, how many farms did you commit to? How hard are you defending this? If you commit to all those farms, I'm going to know my army's bigger and just move in here and take it out. But Classic Metal decides, you know what, I don't even care. I'm just going to go ahead and fully saturate up my second base as well. And we're going to have to see where the game goes from here. I mean, I like the board play out of Spartak. And I also like this hidden base over here, because again, I really agree with this move out of Spartak to saturate up this base before taking any more farms here, because he's giving Classic Metal false information about the strength of his economy, right? So Classic Metal probably assumes Spartak is on a second base that's half saturated, where in reality Spartak is really 3/4 saturated on his second base right now. So that might catch Classic Metal a little off guard, but Classic doesn't want to wait around, man. He's coming in here, he's poking and prodding with his squirrels. Maybe he's trying to kind of instigate an overreaction out of Spartak, is what I would assume, right? Like, kind of come. He doesn't really want to take the engagement right on top of Spartak's gristmill, because that gristmill is going to tank a lot of the hits of Classic Metal. So I think Classic Metal. Oh, he's sneaking over here with his chameleons. I love this type of play. If he can get out of there, very nice, very nice. Yeah, that was beautiful. I mean, just coming in there, using some good micro to snag a farm for free and just move out. Really great stuff. And, they're sitting on equal footing here. I mean, Classic Metal's got this better positioning and this contain, which is, that commitment of taking a Drumfire cannon in your deck. I mean, it's not easy. It's not an easy decision to make, to figure out what you want to cut to fit in two defensive structures. And not having the pigeons is a pretty big deal. But, yeah, if a Classic essentially gains those other two gristmills by building that Drumfire there and those turrets there, so he's in a very defensible position. And it looks really, really sharp here. And, Classic is going to scout out this other base out of Spartak, and he's got to be disappointed, because he assumed he was in this huge, huge lead, which I would argue, yeah, he's definitely ahead, but not as much as he thought he was. And I wonder what Classic Metal's response is going to be. Is he just going to let that gristmill go uncontested for a little bit, or is he going to come in here and kind of push the front? And that's what it seems like he's going to do. And I love this play out of Spartak, really trying to avoid being in range of that Drumfire, and it looks like he just wants to kind of snipe this gristmill, but doesn't want to overcommit, and those pigeons just aren't going to heal the Uncle Butters enough, and that explosion didn't really do a whole lot for Spartak either, unfortunately. With Uncle Butters the way he is, guys, if you're starting to feel like Uncle Butters ain't gonna make it, just run him in to the enemy's troops and try to blow up as much as he can. And I mean, yeah, Spartak takes that base there, but his army's in shambles. Really great play out of Classic Metal, microing his snakes in there, getting those stacks on top of the boar, and able to knock that down pretty effectively. And again, as we've seen highlighted at this higher level play, Spartak recognizes, I'm not going to have the money to ever really get that boar out again, So I'm just going to go ahead and sell it and focus on replenishing the rest of my army. But, you know, going against a Drumfire without a Ferret or without Falcons or anything like that is very difficult for sure. I mean, those turrets on top of the Drumfire is just very annoying. Like, Classic Metal has this part of the map, and I'd really like to see Classic Metal just run over only with his chameleons or something. Yeah, that's what he's doing. Alright, my boy. Yeah, this is the move to make, because leaving the rest of your army there, he's not overcommitting. He can just take out this Gristmill, and Spartak is going to try to react and get over there in time, but it shouldn't be enough. And interesting decision to go for all the pigs instead of the Gristmill. I'm not really sure why Spartak chose to do that, but he is going to lose Classic Metal chose to do that. Maybe he just knows the math, and he was like, it's going to take too long for the 2 chameleons to take out those Gristmills in time. But Spartak is starving now, man. Like, he really could not afford to lose. Okay, so when Classic Metal went up only with his chameleons to take out that base, Spartak responded by sending his entire army, so Classic Metal responded by sniping everything around that base. And now Spartak has decided, you know what, I'm never going to be able to break that open choke point, so I'm going to go around the Drumfire cannon, and I'm going to just try to win the game by taking out the rest of your mining bases. But it wasn't enough in the end, and really great strategies coming out of both players there, but that just shows you the strength of, like, defensive structures, you know? Like, if you can take a base that's a little forward, or a campfire that's really forward towards your enemy's base, and set up a nice defensive position that makes sense, you can get just a ton of value out of it. And Spartak made the right call to try to run around the defenses, but I think throughout the course of the game, Classic just took a lot of really good engagements, and it ended up giving him an edge in the end. So that was only game 1, though. We've got 3 games here, so let's hop right into game number 2. Alright, spawning in the 4 o'clock position, we've got Spartak. I'm sorry, I looked over the chat, Skyraider said something. And at the top left, Classic Metal. So yeah, I apologize, I'm not interacting a whole lot with the chat, guys. It's a little difficult to do that while I'm observing the game. Normally I make Icebox do that, but if you're joining us late, the reason I am streaming by myself is Icebox just had a baby. So congratulations to Icebox. I've actually known this was coming. We talked about it in Discord several times, and so he's basically going to be MIA from the gaming world for a couple weeks, kind of figure out how to be a dad and all that kind of stuff, and whenever he's ready, he's going to come back and join me again. But so for now, you guys are stuck with me. Hopefully I'm keeping it entertaining enough as a solo caster. But man, I don't know, like, if I just like the snow or something. I mean, is it just me, or do these snow maps just look freaking gorgeous, man? Like, I love it. Looks very, very good. And we got a gentleman's agreement going on here. Both players deciding to just rush up right up to those 8 farms, and there's a variety of reasons for that. I mean, the map's actually not super big. That's typically if you're a new player and you're on a map that's really big and kind of windy with a lot of chokes, and it's hard to scout, and there's a lot of doodads and stuff in the way, it's normally a pretty good idea to just rush up to 8 farms, because even if your opponent wanted to go aggressive, it's going to be a really big pain in the ass for him to do so. And look at this, man. Spartak going straight for a snake, you know, off 8 farms, no tier 1 Warren. He places a tier 1 Warren after the snake Warren, but this is going to be really interesting. I mean, I think the first person I had do this against me was Mishi. Mishi came into my base after like 1 tier 1 Warren and then a snake Warren, and just shredded on me with some good micro. Because if you're new, remember, if a snake tags a squirrel just once, I mean, that's enough damage with the poison to kill it. So if you micro well, you know, and move out with a snake relatively quickly, you can kind of tag each enemy squirrel with some snake stacks and really get a ton of value early on. And I'm kind of surprised to see Spartak not moving out, because to me, that feels like that's the move to make when you're rushing for a tier 2 this quickly. But, you know, maybe Spartak is just being more careful. I mean, he's down a match in a best of 3, so he needs to be careful to not overextend. He really can't make any bad mistakes, because I've tried to do that before too, right? Where I rush a snake real early, move out, and then the enemy just wrecks me because they have enough squirrels, and I lose my snake, and I'm like, oh, I guess I'm bad. So you want to be careful to not do something like that. And man, so many chameleons lately. That's really neat to see. I personally haven't played a whole lot with the chameleon because I'm a really big fan of the ferret, which Spartak does have in his deck, but he hasn't opted to take it yet. And it kind of makes sense for game number 2 for him to include the ferret because Classic Metal set up that really great contain the first game with defensive structures, and the ferret is just a phenomenal counter to defensive structures in general. Of course, ferret cannot hit the balloon, so that always makes me feel bad when I run the ferret in my deck and I'm like, okay, I'm well-rounded and I can deal with anything, and then my enemy throws up balloons and I'm like, okay, I can't deal with that, So we'll have to see. Classic Metal's setting up a great opening position here, and he's gonna lose the snake. They both trade a snake there. The healing was not quite enough to get it done for Spartak, but I love this kind of stuff, and this is why I really recommend playing with turrets. Not only is it just super fun, but you can create such good contains, and it's not the biggest investment in the world. And finally that ferret comes out, and that's another good reason to have pigeons in your army too, is because they give you that high ground vision. That's why the ferret was able to go ahead and poke on that turret without the commander being up there. But yeah, man, I just... Oh, yeah, the Christmas ferret. Yeah, I do have Halloween skins. We kind of went over them last show, but we've got a Santa Claus ferret, which is a Christmas or a Halloween costume, you guys. Don't be haters. We got bats instead of pigeons. We've had the lizards with the wizard hats. We've had those for a while. The badger's got a Halloween costume, too, but we haven't really seen that. And Logan's working on a sick, executioner chameleon right now, so looking forward to that for sure. But, Classic Metal taking a pretty good engagement here, but at the same time, that ferret and the snake in the back just over time adds so much value to the engagement, and Spartak comes out on top there. And this is kind of the risk of taking that really, really forward style, and not only that, but Classic Metal felt really confident this game and even decided to expand behind the defensive setup that he made. So that really hurts for Classic Metal, man. And Spartak's got a campfire up, Spartak's got a second base, and Spartak is smelling blood in the water here. Realize that Classic still can't really muster a big enough army up to hold a defense here. So he's pushing the issue. He's coming in here and trying to just seal the deal on this game immediately. And I don't think there's any way Classic Metal is going to come back from this. So I imagine he's going to tap out really shortly, but. That's why I really love the ferrets, right? If your opponent does that, I'm going to contain you, and they commit to it even harder by building a bunch of warrens up there too, all it takes is 1 or 2 ferrets, man, to slowly poke, and as long as your army is comparable to the enemies, it's going to be hard for them to directly engage on you. So that was a really good tech switch out of Spartak, kind of realizing, okay, from round 1, I know my opponent likes to go for that defensive structure style, likes to go for that contain style, so I'm going to adjust my deck just slightly and throw a ferret in there. And really good decision making there out of Spartak. All right. What do we got next? Game number 3. Where's that at? This should be number 10. Yep. All right. Let's do it. Spawning in the 3 o'clock position, we've got Classic Metal. And spawning in the south, we've got Spartak. So this map is pretty interesting, right? Really close attack paths, and Spartak already knows that. Classic Metal hasn't figured it out just yet, and I'm wondering if Spartak is going to do something aggressive here, or if he's going to kind of chill back. And the map looks pretty favored. Well, yeah, the map is definitely favored towards Spartak, but Classic Metal's not out of this. And interesting, Classic decided to tech out of the turret and into the mine, and the reason he did that was because he's like, okay, my opponent's running ferrets now, so I'm not going to be able to really get value out of these turrets, therefore I'm going to go for the mine. And ferrets can technically do pretty good against drumfire cannons as well, but it's kind of hard because I think they both have the same range, but different visions. It's like whoever has vision on the enemy is going to be able to shoot. So you kind of have to get your ferrets in just the right spot. Move your commander up to gain the vision on the drumfire, and then start hitting it from afar. But it's a lot easier said than done. And Spartak, it seems like he's rushing up for another Quick tier 2 here. Ends up going for the snake again. And thanks for the follow, Brad. I appreciate it, man. Welcome to TnTTV. If it's your first time here, we do this every Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. EST, and I just cast replays submitted by the community. Normally I have a casting partner with me, but he just had a baby and he's taken a couple of weeks off and deal with the whole adult thing. So, pretty mirror builds at this point. I mean, Classic Metal went safer, right? Because he got out his Tier 1 Warrens first, and then he opted to start building his snakes. Meanwhile, Spartak's going to have that tempo out from having the early snakes. So, again, I feel like, I mean, I'm not a top player or anything, but I feel like if you're building a Snake Warren that early, you should be using it, right? Like, I feel like Spartak should be trying to hustle for the middle of the map at the very least. Yeah, it looks like he's going to move out now. But I mean, it's a really tight window because Classic Metal's now got the snakes out of his own. I mean, I feel like if Spartak was a little bit more aggressive just slightly earlier, he could have kind of tried to control this campfire right here in the middle of the map, maybe set up a turret or two of his own. But now the armies have pretty much stabilized, and Classic Metal is actually going to take a squirrel lead because Spartak decided to go for more ferrets sooner. And now Classic Metal is doing just that himself. He's decided, okay, we're on at least even armies, you know, so I should be able to start gaining control of this high ground. And whoever gains control of this high ground, I mean, that's a very, very critical aspect to this map, right? Because whoever controls that controls the middle of the map, and whoever controls the middle of the map basically controls everything else. I mean, you imagine if Spartak took that middle, you know, Classic's not going to be able to scout Spartak anymore. Classic's not going to be able to determine how much Spartak is investing in economy or investing in army. And all of these expansions start shifting towards Spartak's favor. So, at the same time, though, I mean, it's still dead even, right? I mean, these are both high-level players, you know. They're spending their money well, and the engagement comes in, but Spartak lost his commander, which is going to be very bad because Spartak's snakes moved out to the front of the line here. Now, Classic Metal did lose his chameleons and one of his own snakes, so actually that didn't go super, super terrible for Spartak. And as long as Spartak can kind of keep it together a little bit and get some free damage out of these ferrets, he's going to be in good shape. And let's see, Classic Metal has not expanded yet. We're coming up on about 4 minutes here, so Classic's really got to decide if he's going to go for an all-in or if he's going to get an expansion of his own and keep his economy going. And right now, it's looking like he's going to favor the former, right? Like, I mean, he's got a lot of Tier 2 units out. He's got a lot of squirrels. He's trying to set up some mines. To me, it doesn't seem like Classic Metal is really interested in playing an economic game. It seems like he's trying to push this issue, try to claim the middle of the map, and then once he gets Spartak scared a little bit and feels safe, he'll end up taking an expansion. But it could work out for him because Spartak has invested 120 food into his gristmill plus a farm. Now that's 180 food, so that's money that's going right into Classic Metal's army. And you know, there is a point where it gets shifted around, but it takes a couple minutes really for that value. And this is why I love to see ferrets so much, man. Just free damage. Like, yeah, you don't have that campfire anymore. Too bad. You're not going to build a drum fire cannon there or anything like that. And you know, Classic Metal decides, okay, maybe now is time for me to go ahead and get an expansion up. He doesn't want to go for the big all-in, one-base play or anything like that. And I think really from here, we're going to have to see when Spartak decides to commit to a boar. And he does that just now. And if you notice, Spartak is really trying to maintain that, like, 8-farm economy. Like, you see how he kind of, like, half-saturated the space, and he just threw down an extra farm, so you know, really that's a good rule of thumb if you're a new player, is you really just want to make sure at any given time you've got 8 farms going. That's a good rule of thumb to help you not, like, oversaturate your bases or anything. But Spartak is aware. Oh, he's got to be aware of that drumfire cannon. Pretty sure. No, I guess he isn't, because if he was, he'd be moving in. How has he not seen it? No. That is so good for Classic here. I can't believe Spartak hasn't seen it, man. Let me see. Yeah, he doesn't know. That's painful. I feel like he could have moved in there and maybe taken out that drumfire with all his ferrets before it got up. But now the drumfire's up, and that's a really big deal for Classic Metal here, especially on the high ground. It's going to be very, very difficult to get vision for those ferrets to come in there and get some work done to it. we'll have to see. I mean, Spartak's got the economic lead here, and he's got an Uncle Butters on the way, which is a big deal. I mean, he can, yeah, now he knows about it, of course, but, I mean, if he simply just walks up to that Drumfire Cannon with his Uncle Butters, even if the Uncle Butters dies, it's going to explode all over Classic Metal's units. And if Classic Metal decides to retreat to save his units, Spartak should be able to get in there and take out that undefended Drumfire Cannon. So we'll have to see. I mean, the tension's rising here. I mean, the engagement's coming soon for sure. Spartak's got to do something. He can't just be contained here, or else Classic Metal is just going to own every single other gristmill on the map, and Spartak's well aware of this, and we'll see how he decides to respond. Moving in with all his squirrels, moving in with his whole army, really trying to get that Drumfire Cannon down. Manages to do just that, but he loses 10 squirrels and 2 snakes in the process, and there's a big explosion. It just absolutely devastates Classic Metal's army, and I think Spartak's in a really good position here to take the match, and we'll have to see if Classic Metal can get together a plan to come back into this game. And that amount of damage that got done for that board, man, like, geez, dude. Yeah, you see that big downward spike on the graph there, so Spartak knows he's got the advantage now and decides to push the issue. Brad, no, this is not an official channel. Yeah, the devs do an official stream on Pocketwatch. I think it's just Pocketwatch or Pocketwatch Games or something like that. It's really cool, and he's a super nice guy, man. I talked to him about it. He's cool with us using the name and all that kind of stuff, and I got to meet those guys at TwitchCon. They're really awesome. So the devs are really, really cool with this game and are really open to anything the community tries to do to help grow it. And so it's a lot of fun, man. I've been enjoying the hell out of Tooth and Tail, but this should be the end for Classic Metal, I'd imagine. I mean, Spartak got another boar out, so he's got the potential for another huge explosion to just absolutely dominate Classic Metal's army. And right now, he doesn't even necessarily need to do that. I mean, the board is just putting out enough work only with this flamethrower here, so this is probably going to be all she wrote. I'm not sure exactly what Classic Metal could do to come back at this point, and just shows you, like, I thought that was a really smart play out of Spartak, you know, like, just be careful, be patient, wait until you've got enough, and then attack the enemy's defensive structures, right? So yeah, I think Classic Metal is probably just processing the loss at this point and kind of think about maybe what he could have done wrong, but this is definitely all she wrote. I mean, he's starving, he's got no army, and Spartak's got a great economy, and yeah, Classic Metal taps out, so great match out of the two players for sure. And Spartak did very, very well in the tournament. Okay, let's see. What time is it? Oh man, it's 10:20. Oh, is it just Pocketwatch? Yeah. Twitch.tv/Pocketwatch. Andy Schatz, the lead developer of the game, hosts a lot of shows, I think typically on Friday, where he'll do a lot of coding or maybe talk about balance of the community. Alright, so I see Insane Gestures in the chat, and he really did not want me to cast this replay, so I think I'm going to cast this replay. And that'll probably be it for tonight. I don't know, maybe I'll do a couple more, but this one for sure. So we're going to go into a three-way free-for-all from Hercrust, Nikki, and Insane Jester. Yeah, you guys feel free to link whatever you want in my chat as long as it's appropriate. I don't really care, guys. I'm a pretty laid-back, chill dude. So in the bottom, we've got Nikki. In the 9 o'clock position, we've got Insane Jester. And in the rights, we've got Hercrust. And an insane map here, dude. Look how many trees are on this map, dude. That is nuts. Like, God, like, what are the even... How do you even... Can you get over there, maybe? Can he? Go up a little for... come on, man. I don't know if you can go this way. Can you go that way? No, that doesn't lead to anywhere, even if you can. Yeah, it looks like the only way you can get to Nikki's base is through this choke right here. And Hercrust, let's see. Hercrust has 2 ways into his base, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. Like, so Nikki's got, man, Nikki's got a fantastic position on this map. I expect to see you win, Nikki. I mean, look, he's got this castle of 4 gristmills right here. He's got this easily defendable choke. Insane Jester does have the quick campfire, but other than that, he's kind of boned on expansions. I mean, either one of the second bases he could possibly take, and this one would be encroaching Nikki, and this one would be encroaching Hercrus over here, and Hercrus is kind of in the middle of both those situations. Like, he's got a really good pocket base, to be honest, so that could come into play for sure. That's going to be very easy to defend from his position. And then he's got a natural base here and a campfire that are relatively easy to defend too. So poor Insane Jester, man. I think Nikki and Hercrus are in some pretty good spots to go into a macro game where Insane Jester really needs to make an early game play and claim some map for his own. And Hercrus is running the Owl, but Insane Jester has the barbed wire, and there's not a really good answer. I mean, Nikki does have some chameleons, which he's actually rushing up to immediately. So we'll have to see if he gets anything done with that. And really the big first choice, I believe, out of this game is going to be who decides for a fast expansion, who decides for a quick tier 3. And another thing to note, too, is, like, Nikki and Hercrus are kind of protected from each other through Insane Jester, right? Like, it's... Now I know why he didn't want me to cast this game. Like, that poor guy, man. He is in a terrible spot on this map because if Hercrus didn't even want to pick on him, if Hercrus is like, I'm going to attack Nikki, he's got to go all the way through Jester's base. And same thing for Nikki here. So I think the ball is really in Jester's court here. Like, he's got to make something happen. And right now he's kind of freaking out. He's a little scared. He's like, okay, I'm going to make a bunch of turrets, kind of calm down, make sure I'm a little bit impenetrable. And there he goes. Now, don't count Jester out of this, though, because if Jester does manage to take that base, that's going to put him in a huge spot. And another thing, too, if you're trying to be sneaky like that, don't scout. Like, I've noticed that, because I try to proxy people pretty often. And, like, if Archimedes' commander kind of ran up right now into Nikki's vision, the natural response of Nikki is to just kind of chase him back a little bit. So you definitely don't want to do that. And yeah, he just kind of revealed himself there, but it might be too late. Nikki kind of hesitating on whether or not he wants to go in on those turrets. So, this is a great move out of Jester for sure, and really making the best out of a bad situation. And look at this, just saying, I'm going to lock you in, man. I'm going to build a bunch of and I love it. That is some great play. So Jester's kind of got the situation with Nikki dealt with, and yeah, Nikki's, like, locked in, but Nikki's got 4 gristmills, man. Like, Nikki can just chill and let Jester and Hercrus kill each other and win this game, so. Oh, and is Jester going to do the same thing up here? Yeah, that's some great game sense, dude. I don't know why you're shy about this one, man. You're playing phenomenally so far, so. That's exactly the type of thing you want to do in Jester's position, and I'd even like to see Jester sell off, like, some of these turrets here, maybe these turrets here, and reposition them with some barbed wire up to maintain this front. And then Jester's kind of got both guys contained, but Jester's got to do better than that, though, man. He can't just settle for 3 gristmills, because he will eventually get farmed out. And look at this. Underneath everybody's nose here, Hercrus has already got an owl out, and he is not going to let Jester contain him the way that Jester just contained Nikki. So really good play out of Hercrus there, sensing what was going on and checking it out and stopping it before it happens. And it's really interesting. Like, I don't know why I'm taking Jester as my protagonist in this game, but he's really the one who's got a puzzle to solve here, right? Because Hercrus' strategy seems pretty straightforward. I mean, Hercrus has plenty of economy over here with a couple different gristmills with the campfire, and he's got the owl, right? So all Hercrus really has to do is sit back and chill and let Jester and Nikki kill each other, and he'll win the game. And Nikki is kind of in a similar position where Nikki doesn't have the tier 3 owl or anything like that, but look at all those turrets out of Nikki, man. That's awesome. But yeah, but Nikki's sealed himself off, and 4 bases is enough. I mean, I'm not kidding when I'm saying, like, Nikki doesn't have to do anything to win this game. If Nikki just sits back and survives, it lets Jester and Hercrus kill each other. Nikki's got plenty of gristmills available to him, to where he'll win the Starvation War. So that might be the strategy here. Yeah, look at this dense forest, dude. I don't think I've ever seen this many trees on a map. This is crazy. Alright, so I noticed that Jester didn't take more farms earlier, but maybe he was thinking I might need those farms to stop from farming out here, and I do feel bad for him. Like, if he was able to get this gristmill earlier and kind of set up a similar contain against Hercrest, he'd be in a good spot. And he does have, like, a little pseudo contain here with a lot of defense, but that's not where he wanted it, man. He really needed those defensive structures to be forward of this expansion that Hercrest is currently saturating, because otherwise, I mean, Jester just does not have the gristmills available to him to keep up with these other players. So we're gonna have to see what happens, man. I mean, my money's kind of on Hercrest here because he's got the owls, and he's got plenty of bases. In fact, he's got the most bases available to him since he was able to secure this base that Jester was trying to take earlier. So it's going to be really rough for these other two players to get something done. And we'll have to see how it pans out. I mean, this game is starting to get a little stalematy here, but that's all right. This is exactly the kind of submission I love to see in these kinds of submissions. So I'm really interested to see where this game is going to go. Because, I mean, don't get me wrong, man. I need submissions. The only way I can do this show is if you guys submit replays to me, right? So, I mean, submit away, but crazy games like this, man, this is what we really want to see. Like, this is showing the oddness and the flavor that Tooth and Tail can possibly bring. And 3-man free-for-all, to be honest, I don't think I've really seen a whole lot. I mean, I've seen 4-man free-for-alls, but kind of makes it pretty unique on its own. And I don't know, man. Like, if Jester just really got kind of rocked by the RNG of the map. I feel like, I don't know, because he invested so much in the south, which I agree was a good move to make, to kind of just be like, all right, I don't have to deal with Nikki anymore. You know, he wasn't able to get that same kind of investment in the north because the money that Jester had to invest on building defense in the south, Hercrest just put straight into his army, got an owl out really early, and was able to stop Jester before he really got kicking into gear the way he wanted to. So it feels really rough for him in this position. Unfortunately, I think Jester has played as best you can with this kind of setup. But it's going to be really hard, man. Like, owls are just so good in the late game, and Hercrest has already shot up to 19 farms and really got himself in this position where he can build up more and more owls. And once you start getting to like 5 owls, I mean, it gets ridiculous. But turrets and barbed wire are not a bad answer to the owls at all. It's not a completely even trade. Like, barbed wire will die, but you're going to trade with those mice pretty effectively. But the problem is that Jester is not going to be able to get up an economy similar to his opponents. And yeah, just look at this beautiful base from Nikki, man. Like, this is so hilarious. I'm not too sure the purpose of these back turrets because I don't think there's another entrance into his base besides his front, but hey, why not, man? He's going for a high score here, dude. He's got 21 turrets up, and Jester's in the same boat at 20. And I mean, as much as I hate to say this, what's most likely going to happen this game is at some point Hercrest and Nikki are going to pincer in and kind of wreck on Jester and then kind of clash each other. And Hercrest's economy is absolutely insane right now, and it's going to allow him to get up to a ton of owls, but he's also giving out his capability to survive a starvation game. Like, if you notice, Nikki could be taking more farms, but Nikki's staying at that like 8 farm saturation I've been talking about tonight, because that's a pretty good income, and you don't want to take too many farms at once because I think all the players have kind of recognized this is going to go to the hyper late game. And man, I like Insane Jester's battle strategy here, though, right? Like, he's like, you know what? I'm just gonna be this impenetrable fortress, dude. Like, I am not gonna let either one of you players do anything. I am just gonna be as annoying as possible, and I love it, dude. Really, I think I heard something like these are all friends, right? They're all playing together on voice chat, probably in Discord, having a good time, yelling at each other and stuff. So I love the decision out of Jester here. Like, look at him. Like, he's just selling off his tier 1 warrants. He's like, what am I gonna do with an army, man? I just need turrets and barbed wire. Like, I'm just gonna be annoying. And I think that's a good way to play this game. And if you notice too, Jester's saving this last farm. That's a really good call as well. So he can kind of hold off and not starve out. But it looks like Jester's kind of had to give up his positioning that he had in the north and just decided, you know what? Neither one of you can hit this middle base. It's going to be easier to defend. And, sorry, one sec, guys. Alright, sorry about that. But yeah, so Jester was just running out of money, constantly trying to defend against Hercres's aggression, because remember, Hercres has all those mice, so he can constantly come in and trade his free units for value out of Jester. So look at this impenetrable fortress Jester has set up here. He's like, dude. Oh god, this is hilarious. And I can't emphasize enough how smart of a move it is out of Jester to not take that last farm, right? He is saving that so he does not starve for as long as possible. And I wonder if that campfire there was mined out completely, or if he could possibly take it and prevent himself from starving as some more. But man, this is where the owl just gets insane, dude. Like, Hercres has so much money, and he doesn't even care. To be fair, he might want to hold off a bit. I mean, he's got so many gristmills available to him. He's still got these two farms back here. He's still got this campfire, and he's still got a whole nother gristmill he hasn't even touched yet. So Hercres is like, dude, I've got 6 owls. I've got a million other units. I don't have to build anything else. I'll just be able to remax. And, dude, how are you going to break that? Like, that is insane. That's what I'm talking about, man. Like, yeah, you notice the mice are doing damage to the barbed wire, but he didn't kill a single thing there. I mean, there's so many turrets, and if you're a player that does not like playing owl, but you want to compete with owls in the late game, you know, throw turrets into your deck, man, and really create a front line to where those turrets can trade well with the mice. And, you know, having some units like a snake or a badger maybe that can get in there once all those mice are done and knock out those owls is a really good strategy. But and Nicky's setting up for this hyper late game too, and I think the point of all these turrets over here from Nicky is saying that's going to be my last stand, dude. That's going to be the Alamo for Nicky over here. And, you know, if everything else gets annihilated on, I am going to hold off. And look at this. Nicky didn't take any farms there. So, again, kind of with that, I think all the players are starting to get the memo besides, well, Hercres too, because he still has this untaken gristmill, that, like, starving is going to happen, right? So yeah, Jester building his last farm over there, you know, saved it for this moment when starving is going to kick in. And Nicky's got this whole other gristmill with a million turrets around it to prevent from starving, and Hercres has that own. Now, if you notice, Hercres didn't have to build any turrets of his own, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, like when I was explaining my ladder match against Bright Yellow, because we were both going for a lot of owls, but I built a lot of defense, right? And if you notice, look how big Hercres' army is compared to the other guy's player. And yeah, his economy's been better, but he hasn't invested anything at all into defense, while these other guys have like 30 turrets each. So his army is absolutely massive. And since he's been able to keep the tempo on his opponent, you know, he wouldn't have needed defenses anyways. So starting to break through, but it's going to be very costly. I mean, not super costly. He lost a good amount of pigeons and squirrels, maybe he lost a snake, but other than that, you know, none of his owls got taken out. And we're going to have to see from here, man. I mean, if Nicky can possibly get up enough to where when Hercres eventually breaks through Insane Jester. Now, remember, Insane Jester did take his last farm like a minute or two ago, so in a few minutes he is going to start starving again and get kicked out of the game. But until then, he's going to keep stalemating this as long as possible, and we'll have to see. I mean, Nicky still has a good economy, but that army value, though, man. I mean, it's a little misleading because the turrets get counted towards the army value, but as far as standing army is concerned, I mean, Hercres is light years ahead. And rightfully so. I mean, I don't feel like any of the players like really misplayed this game or anything like that. It's just that the map advantage where Jester was kind of stuck right in the middle of the two other players with not a whole lot of expansion options available to him. And then Hercres just happened to get all these expansions that allow him to take his time and macro up. And look at all those falcons in there too, man. 13 falcons, 4 snakes, and 8 owls is significant. And finally, Jester's defenses are getting knocked out here, and Jester is the first one to fall. So we're going to have to see if Nicky manage to muster up a big enough army of his own to hold off the onslaught that's going to be coming out of Hercules here. I mean, 8 owls is very significant, and yeah, I'm not sure. Like, I'd like to see a tech switch out of Nikki to really focus in on those falcons. Maybe the toads are good. I'm not sure how well toads work against the mice, but I'm really interested to see how Nikki is gonna answer this. And, you know, throwing down more and more badgers. You see the badgers with little witch hats, thanks to Logan. Little Halloween skin going on here. So, God, look how many freaking mice that is. This is nuts. So many free units. Hercules just takes that gristmill just because he can. I mean, yeah, he gets a little bit more of a farm out of it, but here we go. He's going for the big engagement, and Nikki is still just trying to buy time. I think Nikki is deciding again to go for that Alamo strategy and be like, you're going to have to break me here at this very back-end base, because, you know, turrets by themselves, even in very large numbers, aren't the best in the world. You really have to have the rest of your army there to defend them, and that's what Nikki's strategy is going to be, this last holdout kind of approach. You know, Nikki has no more Warrens left over, but it's got a ton of turrets, and they're positioned in such a way that so many of them can fire at the same time. And also look at that high ground too. It's going to be very difficult. Yeah, so the mice can only get in there and attack one turret at a time for the most part. But now these winged demons are getting on here. I mean, I don't know if Nikki's army is really very movable at this point, because it's stuck there behind all those defensive structures. So we'll have to see. I mean, I feel like Hercules is so far ahead. I mean, just having owls in the late game like this, man, is very advantageous. I mean, an owl is kind of it's an interesting unit, because I don't feel like it's a tier 3 unit you want to like rush out, right, for a particular strategy. That seems to be more like a Uncle Butters or a Wolf that you want to get early, but the owl is always a good addition to your deck if you can slot it in, because it just gives you this super late game potential, right? Which is very strong. So here we go, the mice coming in again, and this time it looks like most of Nikki's army is able to fire. Got a lot of toads and get some decent connections, but mice are no joke, man. They've got a lot of HP. They are not weak units in the least bit. And Harkers isn't starving, and Harkers still has an untaken gristmill, so I'm not sure what Nikki's plan is going to be here. Like, maybe if Hercules was starving right now, Nikki would possibly have a chance, but I mean, Hercules is still in a great shape. He's got 2 farms left over on his 1 gristmill. He's got this untaken gristmill right here. He'll always fall back on. And I don't know what you could do against 8 owls, man. I mean, once it gets up to like 8 owls, that's so much money. How are you going to deal with that? We'll see. Nikki's deciding. Now, Nikki did lose all of his Warrens as well, so he's in a very tight spot. Just decides, you know what, I'm going to last stand it a little bit harder, build a couple more turrets, have a little bit more fun with this game. And, you know, I really don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about Hercules winning at this point. There's just way too many free units coming out of Hercules, and the value is just absolutely insane. Get him, Badgers! Go, Nikki! The micro! That's it. Yeah, great job out of Hercules, man. Great job out of all those players. I think they did very well with the cards that were dealt to them. All right, 1042. All right, I'll do one more game. I think I do one more game. What's it gonna be? Actually, I think we'll finish off with one more match from the Chipperoni. Get some Chipperoni and the pepperoni. Give me 1 second to load that up. Load it up. Alright. Bad map, good game. Let's do it. Alright, spawning In the 2 o'clock position, we've got Chip from Outer Space. And in the 7 o'clock position, his opponent playing Hopper, we've got Weltrick. Interesting deck choices coming out of both these players. Chip actually deciding to run the Lizards and Toad composition in this matchup, and I really think it's cool that Chip does this a lot, man. Like, he'll really showcase a lot of different units and try to make people aware of, you know, like, a lot of things can be viable, right? I mean, the meta isn't super strict, and it's not like you have to take these 6 units or you're going to lose. I mean, there's a lot of different builds, and that really comes into play a lot in tournaments. And to be honest, even on the ladder, when we have kind of a small community like we do, I mean, the community is going to keep growing, and eventually you're not going to run into the same people on the ladder so often. But, you know, if I'm against the same couple, you know, if I'm normally around rank 30, so if there's a couple of other rank 30 guys playing, we're most likely going to play multiple matches against each other. And if I just run the same exact thing every single game, I'm going to be very predictable, and my opponent can adjust their deck to kind of counter me and beat me at deck selection, you know. So it's really important, especially if you're a player who wants to play in some tournaments or some leagues or something like that, to have a couple different builds up your sleeve. And I think Chip's always been a great player on showcasing stuff like that. And it's really rough when you're a high-level player that streams, because a lot of new players will go to Chip's stream and they'll watch it and they'll want to copy the builds and stuff. And I think it's really cool that Chip tries to keep his compositions pretty fresh and not do the same thing over and over, because, you know, when you're a very high-level player and you stream, you're kind of setting the meta, you know, whether you like it or not. You know, people are going to watch what you're doing and they're going to want to copy it. So when these guys play a whole bunch of different things, like the balloon, I don't see Chip ever playing balloons or ferrets, for example. And look at this, he even went for a quick balloon and ferret rush. So he's just trying out a totally different strategy here, and really good game sense out of Chip. What he did was he scouted his opponent. You know, he built the lizard up front, went in, recognized, you know, just to be safe, right? Recognized, okay, my opponent went for an early expansion, you know, built a couple of defensive structures, so therefore is not going to be aggressive. And by the way, fantastic barbed wire placement out of Weltrick, man. I really love seeing, this is why I think barbed wire is going to get more and more popular, because all these doodads on the map create these little chokes, and it doesn't take much food at all to really secure that off. And yeah, so the play out of Chip was he built a tier 1 to be safe, right? And then he went up for the ferret and got a balloon warren because he can, and then decided, okay, I could sell the lizard since I have the balloon warren. I'm nice and cozy and safe, and I can save up for a quick tier 3 unit. And he's going for that quick wolf, which I see a lot lately. Just a couple weeks ago, it was like you see a lot of wolves in 2v2, but not a whole lot in 1v1. And lately, they've been coming a lot more in style, and rightfully so, man. I mean, the wolves buff the hell out of your units, and you know, at the same time, though, I mean, Chip can't just sit around behind his balloon forever. Like, Weltrick is effectively taking the entire map right now. I mean, if Weltrick can really hold this forward position, there's no way that Chip has access to any of these gristmills. So it's going to be very difficult for him. And, you know, Weltrick's got the balloons. He's got an Uncle Butters. He's got a really... Actually, Weltrick's deck, as much as I've been kind of doting on Chip over here, you know, Weltrick's got a really unique deck here, too. Went really skimpy on Tier 1 and Tier 2 to fit in a couple defensive structures and a couple Tier 3 units. So if his plan goes accordingly, he could be in really good shape. But, oh, this is going to be neat, watching the wolf buff the ferrets. But, you know, this is where it feels bad, right? Because you take the ferrets to respond to defense, but ferrets don't do anything against barbed wire balloons. Now, they can take out a balloon while it's being built, as you saw there, but you know, ferrets can't do anything at all to this forward position that Weltrick has. The only thing that the ferrets really can do is Chip can come in and poke from time to time and make sure Weltrick doesn't build like too much right on this front line. But other than that, I mean, he's got to be really careful to microwave these things. Let's see if he loses any. He's almost lost one, but manages to keep it alive. And you know, Chip doesn't have pigeons or anything like that, so he's going to have to wait around for a little bit for these ferrets to effectively heal back up. And, you know, pretty ballsy campfire coming out of Chip, but he's really kind of got to take it. I mean, look at how much of this map is just taken by Weltrick. Like, just a few barbed wire, right? Like, 11 barbed wire, which is a lot. I mean, that's like, what, a 220 food investment? But those plus the balloons, I mean, maybe like 400 or 500 food investment, and Weltrek has effectively taken over the entire map here. And just a note, balloons do not hit buildings, so that's why that's not happening. But wing demons are real. Oh my god! Did you see how fast those wing demons took out that balloon, man? Dude, I mean, they were buffed by the wolf, but I still underestimate the wolf, man. Like, I'm always surprised. Like, look at this. Great play. Like, just stand. He's got to wait a little while for them to heal back up, but just kind of poking in. Boom, boom, boom. Hit the gristmill a couple times. God, that attack speed buff out of the wolf is just so unreal, dude. Those, what, 3 wing demons took out that balloon in like half a second. That was insane. But that's why I really like the wing demons, because they are a very good answer to static defense. And they're also a really good answer to owls. If it goes hyper late game, I mean, just throw some wing demons in your deck if you're not a big fan of being that guy who plays the owls, and you'll get a ton of damage done. So I love this. Like, Chip is using this campfire aggressively to place his own balloons, and at some point, if you notice, Chip sold this balloon, and that's very, very important, guys. If you're a new player and you like this like World War I defensive strategy style of play, you need to make sure to always leapfrog your defensive structures, you know. Building that one balloon early allowed Chip the safety and flexibility to rush out the quick wolf, right? Like, when Fox is really good, I would go for like 2 tier 1, like 2 squirrel warrens, throw down a fox, throw down a turret if I had a nice defendable spot like this, and then it's like, okay, I feel safe. I got a couple units, I got a defensive structure, and now I can rush my tier 3. And Chips did something similar there with the balloon and with the wolf. So, oh, and beautifully, Chip is able to sneak out and take this gristmill over here. And this is another thing that gets really difficult in like higher level play, is it's not enough to scout the map once. Like, Weltrick hasn't even really scouted at this point, but you gotta be scouting constantly. Like, at the beginning of the game, you really need to figure out where all the gristmills and campfires are at, and then if you get the opportunity, I mean, you always need to be running around and looking for gristmills, because if somebody just takes a sneaky base like that, you know, now Chip can just warp over there and saturate that up. And you know, to be fair though, Chip's economy is totally in shambles. I mean, all he's got mining for him right now is that single campfire, but it's not going to be a big deal for Chip. Whenever he feels ready, yeah, you can just burrow away. He's probably going to burrow to this base, yep, and throw down several farms, burrow back out, come back to the campfire, be back on the front lines. So, really great play out of Chip. And if Weltrek just scouted that base, man, and just moved his squirrels over there, like, he would win this game for sure. But I think that really highlights how important scouting is, right? Like, you always got to be on top of that type of stuff, and it's a really risky thing to do too, though. I mean, it's easy to say, like, oh, make sure you're constantly scouting, but, you know, if Weltrick decided to go scout right now, and Chip took advantage of that, he could effectively start a fight where the enemy's army is not being microed. So you have to really kind of like find little bits and pieces of opportunity to go get a scout out, and sometimes that can be hard to judge, for sure. Alright. Let's see here. I mean, Weltrick's economy still is better, but he doesn't really have an answer for what's coming out of Chip here. And man, I'm gonna have to start experimenting with the wolves, dude. Like, wolves just seem so strong. And slowly but surely, Chip is just trading off his 2 or 3 lizards he's got for this barbed wire, and making a position where he can come in here and wow, look how far away those ferrets were still buffed from the wolf too. But yeah, so he's just microing these ferrets, getting as much value as he can. You know, once the squirrels get too close, he's gonna run away a little bit. He's always got his front-liney position to fall back on, and you know, Chip is really making the best out of a bad situation here, right? Like, Weltrick claimed the entire map incredibly early, but with the use of some ferrets, with the, you know, grabbing a sneaky base with some good micro, Chip is really showing you how you can inch your way back into the game. And you know, this wolf is just like, look at this, boom, just erased, dude, just deleted. Like, no chance. That was insane. I love to see the Falcon play. It's I don't think I've ever really seen falcons and ferrets buffed by the wolf. It's kind of interesting. And Chip tried to rush over there and start hitting that balloon right before it finished. And the balloon can be attacked by ferrets while it's still being built, but after it's in the air, it cannot be. So now Chip is just gonna have to micro his falcons again and take that balloon out. Looks like he's gonna run over there. Watch this. Boom, 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 boom. Gone. That's insane. That's so insane. And Chip's not overcommitting on his economy either, which is a little bit weird at this point. I think it's mainly because Chip realizes that's going to be his only extra gristmill, and he can't really afford to let that mine out too quickly, right? Because if this game does drag on, he's going to have to be kind of slowly keeping himself at just enough economy to replenish. But Chip has a very high value composition going on here, so he doesn't really need a big economy to back his army up, seeing how he's not really having to rebuild very often. And Weltrick really has got to commit at some point or another. I mean, actually, now I'm thinking about it, like, let me see. I don't know, their army values are pretty neck and neck, and I think actually Weltrick should not commit, right? Like, I feel like the longer this goes on, if Weltrick can maybe grab this other base, keep his economy going strong, and just manage to survive the onslaught of Chip, he should, in theory, eventually be able to get something done. But, Weltrick was, I think what Weltrick really needed to do was get out a wolf of his own at some point. I mean, he's got the wolf, which would have really made a big deal, boosting these squirrels up to catch these ferrets that are constantly coming in to harass, and he just could never quite get the money out to do so. And he's also got a lot of chameleons, which I haven't really seen used yet. I mean, I don't know if he doesn't want to reveal them, and here they go. They're finally getting revealed and coming in here and getting on top of a lot of these very valuable units for Chip, and takes an okay engagement. Yeah, I mean, Weltrick did come out on top, but he's got to be careful. I think he might be a little too scared of these balloons. Yeah, let me see. Like, what could Weltrick do? I think if he can just manage to take this southern gristmill, and now he's gonna scout it. Yeah, he had to have been wondering this whole time, like, what can happen? Like, why is Chip still in this game? And it finally gets an answer to that question, but it might be a little too late, as Chip has been mining successfully from that base for quite some time now, and surprisingly has a better income than Weltrick does now. Weltrick never took this 6 o'clock base, so slowly over time, with Chip just being patient with this other expansion, he's been able to edge out an economic lead. But here's the big engagement. Weltrick's not messing around anymore, decides it's now or never, comes in, and those balloons manage to get enough done for Chip and the wolf, and yeah, he lost a lot, but he manages to come out on top. And I don't know, man, that's gonna be it. So what a crazy game. I think that's a great one to end the stream on. What do you guys think? What time is it? I went an hour longer than normal, and by myself, so I think I gave you guys enough. So thank you for tuning in so much. I really appreciate it. It's a Toothandtailtv. I am, of course, Delthius. We do this every Tuesday and Thursday night, 8 p.m. EST. Normally I have Icebox with me, but he's on baby vacation. He just had a child, so I gave him a couple weeks off, right? Because I'm a generous boss nerd. So announcements. What announcements do I have? I went to TwitchCon. If you weren't here at the beginning of the show, that was amazing. I got to meet Andy Schatz and Dexter and Best Team Maker and Glide. We had a great time, and I met Day 9. He was really awesome, and he gave me some tips on how to help the Tooth and Tail community grow, which I don't want to give spoilers yet. Well, I don't know. Well, okay, so here's the idea, and you guys can message me on Discord or something and let me know, but I'd like to start like a TnTTV league, and not like a big tournament per se, but more like a season, right? And maybe start shifting the show to where it's like an hour of replays and like an hour of league games or something like that. And it would be more like a football season than like a hard tournament. So we're flirting around with doing, some ideas like that. I think it'd be really cool. I did reach affiliate status the other day, so thank you everybody for helping support the stream and get me affiliate status very, very quickly. That was awesome. I think I was streaming for like less than a month and got affiliates, so that was really cool. I know it's not the biggest deal in the world or anything, but I'm not sure what I want to do with that, to be honest, man. Like, I don't want your money. Like, I don't know. I mean, me and Icebox are older dudes and have good jobs, and I'm not doing this to get donations or to make money or anything, guys. I just really love Tooth and Tail and want to help the community grow. So I figured doing a casting show would be a good way to do it. But what I have been thinking about doing, once I get the affiliate thing set up, is if I can figure out a way to where there's like donation transparency. If you donate to the show, 100% of all donations would go to a prize pool for that like TnTTV league type of thing, right? So maybe it's not a lot of money, you know, but if you subscribe or if you donate, you're gonna know that money is gonna go right into TnT Esports. So I thought that might be a cool idea, like get a little league going. I've talked to a couple guys that are interested in doing an organization for it. I need to quit slacking on the YouTube channel. If anybody's out there, you've been trying to figure out a way to help get involved with Tooth and Tail, man, I would love to have a video editor or somebody to run YouTube for me, man. I mean, I'll bite the bullet and commit some time to it if I have to, but I'm a really busy dude. Like I don't have a whole lot of time, to be perfectly honest. So I'll try to make time to get my YouTube channel up here shortly if I need to. But please let me know if you want to get involved. I could use all the help I can. Let me know what you guys think about doing like a little kind of like semi-competitive, more just to have fun, kind of like Tooth and Tail League where there's like a season, you get like stats and stuff, and I don't know, maybe we can seed into bigger tournaments or something like that. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Just more stuff to compete in tournaments, right? Like I feel like it's a lot of fun to just show up and compete in tournaments. I think that's really cool. And then, like I said, I did get affiliate, so I'll set all that up soon, and if anybody decides to give this channel money, I'll make sure all that money goes to TnT prizes, if we ever get to that part. So I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Let me see who is streaming right now. I might mess up here for a second on the audio. Don't do it. Okay. All right. Who we got streaming Tooth and Tail? I mean, Mishi hosted me, so I guess I'll host Mishi. Nah, I love Mishi. We'll totally host Mishi. So, thank you, everybody. You're all a bunch of beautiful nerds. I hope you had a fantastic Halloween, and I'll see you guys back next Thursday night, 8 p.m. Take care, everybody. See ya.